everybody, today we are debating whether or not the flood of Noah was unethical, and we're starting right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thrilled to have you here for another epic debate. This is going to be a fun one, folks, and want to let you know if it's your first time here to Modern Day Debate, we're a nonpartisan channel striving to give everyone their fair shot to make their case on an equal playing field. And we are very excited to have you here, no matter what walk of life you are from, Christian, atheist, Jedi, Sith, you name it, and want to let you know we are excited. Consider hitting that subscribe button because we have many more debates coming up. So for example, tomorrow, atheism versus Christianity between our good friend Matthew Steele and Mr. Batman, as you see pictured in the bottom right of your screen. That should be a juicy one. We're also very excited as we have many more to come, but not only that, I want to mention, if you have not heard, Modern Day Debate is invading the podcast world. So folks, as you'll see on the far right of your screen, that banner has just some of the podcast apps that we are now on. If you cannot find us on your favorite podcast app, let us know. We will work hard to get on there for you. So, very excited, folks. Want to say, today's going to be a kind of an easygoing format where each team is going to have 10 to 12 minutes to make their case. We're going to start with the affirmative, who would be Skylar Fiction and TJump, and then after they make their opening case, CJ and Smokey will have 10 to 12 minutes to make their opening case, followed by open conversation and Q&A. If you have a question, fire it into the old live chat. Tag me with @ModernDayDebate to make it easier for me to get every question in our Q&A list. And Super Chat is also an option. So in case you have a question that you want to ask, or if you want to make a comment during the Q&A, Super Chat allows you to do that, and Super Chats will go to the top of the list for the Q&A. So, very excited to have these guys here. Want to remind you folks, first time I'm telling you, I put the links of all four of our guests in the description box. So that way if you're listening, you're like, I want more. You can hear more by clicking on those links. So we're going to kick it over to Skylar and TJump. But first, just let me say both to Skylar and TJump as well as CJ and Smokey, we're thrilled to have you guys here. Thanks just for hanging out with us, guys.
Shit, we're happy to be here. Hey, just to give you a heads up, I don't know if you saw the comments are saying the music's still playing.
Oh, that's
I just don't want.
What we have is it might be a little bit hard to make out. It is actually a different song. We're testing it out. So don't worry. We're testing out a different song. It's just difficult to make it out. And the audio levels, I'm kind of playing with it, because when I've used it, it's kind of, let's say my ears when I've tested it are not super astute. So thanks for that. And with that, we are going to kick it over to Skylar and TJump. Thanks so much, guys. The floor is all yours.
Hello, everybody. I'm super excited to be here. I'm Skylar Fiction. I'm glad to get to partner up with Tom tonight. I've been kind of very enthusiastic about this for a while. But let's get into the topic, right? So what are we talking about? We're talking about Noah's flood. And I think when we really get into this, really we just got to talk about what happened, and we can talk about whether it was ethical, what God did, right? I think the biggest question we can ask ourselves, is it ethical, is it moral to execute babies? That's the only question really we need to kind of ask, because in any situation where you choose to execute babies, you're going to find that it's immoral or unethical. Also other things happened during the flood. Like, for instance, handicapped people were drowned to death. People who had serious mental disabilities. We have a situation where, God could have chosen a much more peaceful way than violent execution, like he chose. For instance, he could have easily just had all the babies die in their sleep. He could have had it to where he just poofed them out of existence. That's what Pine Creek likes to say, all right? But what he chose to do was drown everybody, execute everybody in a violent way, not just the people who were evil in there. Now, the Bible will say mankind had become evil, but surely we aren't going to argue that babies are evil, right? I would imagine not. I can't imagine a situation where it would be moral or ethical to execute innocent people, innocent babies or mentally handicapped people. And I also would like to point out too, I think something you always have to remember too is what makes something unethical or immoral under the Christian worldview. Because we are talking about the Christian worldview. We're talking about the Bible here. And that's that goes against God's nature. So for instance, we would say that they would say it's immoral to lie because God's not a liar. God can't lie. It would go against his nature, right? We could use examples like rape. I would imagine Christians would say there's no context in which rape would be moral, right? Because rape would go against God's nature, that type of violent action. So it's going to be weird here, right? If all of a sudden we're going to somehow try to justify that in some circumstances, it's perfectly moral to execute children and people who have severe mental handicaps that have, very little cognizance. So I think that's going to be interesting, right? Because what I have a feeling is going to happen during this debate, and I'll wrap it up and pass it over to Tom here a little early, is what we're going to end up getting is either some kind of morally justified reasons that we don't have an answer for, right? Basically, it's a mystery. Or we're going to be forced into a position, the Christian's going to be forced to just say it's moral. And at the end of the day, if that's what you're going to do, if you're going to say, hey, it's moral in some situations to execute the handicapped and children and babies, that's on you. I'm not going to argue with your moral position. Then you can have that moral position. I just think that I think it's unlivable. I think it's unreasonable. And I think the reason you would actually even articulate that is just because usually sometimes in the Bible, you have to work backwards because you start with what your belief is from the Bible, and then you have to work backwards to justify it when it doesn't make any sense. And I'll just, mention this is uncharacteristic of God. God has multiple times throughout the Bible chosen judgment on his people and had children executed and mentally handicapped people executed. I mean, we can look at Sodom and Gomorrah. We can take a look at when the Israelites go into the land of Canaan and conquer these lands. So we're going to see a pattern. There's no reason to believe that it's immoral under their moral system. And like I said, I think at best, that's all we're going to get is that, hey, well, yeah, it's moral when God does it, but when everybody else does it, it's completely immoral. But that wouldn't apply to other contexts like rape, lying, other things like that. Tom, you can take it over, my man.
Thanks, Skylar. Yeah, it's a pretty good summary. So the Christian Abrahamic God is an evil, psychopathic, mass-murdering moral monster as stated by his own word in the Bible. Killing innocent children in Exodus 12, releasing chemical weapons to kill thousands of people in Numbers 16, forcing parents to kill and sacrifice their children, Judges 11, destroying cities full of people because they disagree with him, Judges 14. Genocide, lots and lots of them, Chronicles, Josiah, Deuteronomy, Numbers, Samuel. Killing all the men and women and making the young women sex slaves, Judges 21, sending bears to murder children, 4 Kings 2, turning Lot's wife into salt because she looked in the wrong direction, Genesis 19, helping Samson murder people to pay off a debt, Judges 14, killing people for complaining that God kept killing them, Numbers 16. If God was real and all of these things actually happened, then worshiping that God and saying he was justified in his atrocities is as immoral and disgusting as white supremacists who say the Holocaust was a good thing because the Jews deserved it. I find it hilariously ironic that the theists who are renowned for their sanctimonious delusion that they have the moral high ground don't realize the contradiction in their worldview that they are worshiping a mass-murdering monster who they claim is the ground of goodness. Their belief is as bad as the white supremacists who support the Holocaust because they thought it was a moral thing to do. There are many of these examples throughout the Bible, but the focus of this debate is just one of them, which is the flood, the global flood. And so I have a very simple premise, conclusion, argument. God executed innocent babies. Executing innocent babies is immoral. Yahweh is an immoral dick. Therefore, God cannot be objectively good. He cannot be the basis of morality. He is not worthy of worship. The Christian God is a worthless dick who deserves the same fate as Hitler, Gaddafi, Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, Saddam Hussein, and all of the other dicks throughout history. If there was any real moral justice, the Christian Godhead would be the first one on the chopping block. Drowning babies is immoral. Oh, but it's not the first time or the last time he did that, because he also killed all the Egyptian babies with the firstborns in number 16, but that's a separate issue. All right, I'm done.
Next up, we will kick it over to our theist friends, CJ and Smokey. Glad to have you here, gentlemen, and the floor is all yours.
CJ, it's up to you if you want to go first.
I tend to be kind of long-winded, so it might be best if I went second.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll then give you some extra time here. Yeah, TJump, that was pretty disappointing. Clearly, your argument is primarily from a place of emotion, and we're here to argue a pretty specific context of the Bible. Based upon the actual flood, and you want to gish gallop at us a whole bunch of passages that, of course, we're not here to debate or refute. So you think you win your opening argument by putting a bunch of things out there that aren't our debate for the topic. I think it's a little bit spineless. I think it's a little bit cowardly, and the fact that you throw in the vitriolic insults to the person that we're here to debate essentially tonight is just a little bit petty. But in any case, I was actually expecting more of that potentially from Skylar. I was surprised to see it from you to come across so petty in that fashion. But I think what you guys are ultimately going to have to describe to us based upon your worldview, since you condemn this so horribly, is why? Why is it a problem to kill babies? Why are you entitled to life? Why do you have to live a certain amount of time? And is it morally wrong if you don't get to live a certain amount of time? Your worldviews are moral and logical catastrophes. And while you can sit on your ivory towers and clouds of judgment looking down on us because we try to glean an objective truth out of reality, you guys are a contradictory mess. And I think as we move forward through this debate, we're going to demonstrate a lot of that. I yield to my partner.
All right, and thank you for that. And so, happy to be here, guys. Just want to say a quick shalom. So I want to go ahead and get right into my argument because, like I said, I do tend to be a little bit long-winded, and I want to make sure that I don't go over time here. So let me say that my opinion on the very question itself is that the question is somewhat absurd on its face. Let me tell you why. There is really only two possibilities here. Possibility number one, God does not exist. Now, if God does not exist, then the flood of Noah was either A, natural, in which case there's no way it could possibly be moral or immoral, it's just natural, or B, a fiction, in which case it's just as absurd to call this some huge moral travesty, as it would be to say that the destruction of Alderaan in episode 4 of Star Wars is some sort of travesty. So it's either natural or fictional under option A. And under option B, which is that God does exist, well, then he is simply the person who created morality. Morality does not exist apart from him, and therefore to say anything that he does is immoral is absurd on its face. Being made, and I am, of course, assuming the Christian worldview in this, but being made in the image of God means that the things which you find inherently immoral, you only find inherently immoral because you are made in the image of God. In other words, to sit up and try to justify or condemn or any sort of other morally loaded word certain actions of this deity would be completely insane. It would be almost like saying George Lucas is to blame for the destructions of Alderaan or something like that. And maybe that pushes forward the story. Maybe that, he has whatever his reasons are. I don't care. The point is, calling him immoral, we would all very much recognize, is completely absurd. He created the world. He can do whatever he wants with it. He can have Sidious murdered by Vader if he'd like. He can have Vader murder tons of children if he likes. It doesn't matter because he's the creator of that universe, right? Now, I would actually go a step further than this, on top of the fact that I think it is purely absurd to actually put moral crimes at the feet of the very person who established what morality is in the first place. I also do think there is a little bit of a contradiction in many atheists. Now, of course, Skylar and TJump are their own men, and they will be able to let us know if they affirm the problem of evil. However, isn't it interesting that you have many, many, many atheists all across the world who do affirm the problem of evil and find it to be an absolutely indisputably, unsurmountable problem for Christians. And yet, when God does something about murder by punishing wicked people, when he does something about rape by punishing the wicked, whatever it happens to be, by punishing these wicked nations, these wicked people groups, the atheist immediately jumps up and says, well, I don't agree with your methods. Well, okay, do you want the stopping of this evil or not, right? Is God immoral for allowing evil, or is he immoral for destroying evil, right? Because you can't possibly affirm both things. He's either immoral because he let everything happen during the times of Noah, or he's immoral because he wanted to get rid of that and condemned it and all that other sort of stuff. I would also quickly point out that we are talking about here, right, a being that, at least from my perspective, of course, I understand the two atheists are going to disagree with this, is literally perfect, right? In other words, when you see, we have things like abortion, warfare, the death penalty, so on and so forth, where we fallible human beings do indeed take the life of other human beings. Now, whatever your particular positions on things like personhood, just war theory, whatever that happens to be, the scientific fact of the matter is all three of those examples that I just mentioned, human life is being taken, right? In other words, we fallible human beings who commit what the Bible would classify as sin literally every single day think that we are justified in executing human beings. And yet, when the literally sinless, omnipotent, omniscient, eternal creator of the entire universe decides that he's going to do the very same, we think that we are in a position to judge him and to condemn him. And I think that is completely absurd. In order to be logical in this conversation, I think that you would have to say and then justify that the taking of human life, even if it is wicked, is always wrong. And I don't think anybody is actually willing to make that position. If they are, then potentially they are. Obviously, we'll see there. But then how did we free the Jews again in that Holocaust that TJump mentioned? By killing human beings. How did we make sure that the United States of America, at least in certain instances like Alaska, Hawaii, so on and so forth, are not currently speaking Japanese and under the oppressive rule of a dictatorial theocratic government? Well, because we killed them. Why is Jeffrey Dahmer no longer here? Well, somebody ended his life, right? In other words, and of course, if there's any support for abortion on the other side, I think that's a little bit self-explanatory, right? It is literally a human life being terminated. In any of these instances, if you decide that it is indeed moral to take the life of that person, then you're contradicting yourself. And if you don't decide that it's moral to take the life of that person, well, then what exactly are you to do with these rapists, genocidal people, so on and so forth, who we defeated by killing? And by the way, let me just quickly point out, nobody has ever defeated any Nazis without killing them, right? Once those Nazis gained power, you shot your way out. It's the same with the communists. It's the same with the theocrats. It's the same with all evil people. Once they got power, people shot their way out. In other words, they killed their way out. They didn't argue their way out. They didn't put people in jails or hospitals or something like that. They killed their way out. And as a result, we have a better world, right? So even us, fallible human beings, can be justified in the taking of evil human life. I simply say to you, if we are, how much more so is the one who created that life? And then I would yield the rest of my time.
Thanks so much. We will now kick it into open discussion mode. Gentlemen, the floor is all yours.
Yeah, so I wanted to jump in real quick and first say that this isn't about objective morality. We can just grant there is objective morality. If you think killing babies is not objectively wrong, then you can take that position. That's fine. I just don't care. We're just going for the purpose of the debate. We're going to assume there is objective morality. Killing babies is objectively wrong, and God killed babies, so God is objectively immoral. So I don't want to get bogged down in any kind of debates about what is the ground of objective morality. That's for a different time. Second, you mentioned a perfect being the God is a perfect being. So he's a perfect being who drowns babies and executes them by drowning. That's what a perfect being does. I see a problem with your theory of what perfect means. Now, you mentioned that humans kill people and like self-defense and Nazis and those kinds of things. What you mentioned is that most people wouldn't make the claim that killing in any case is wrong. Well, I do. I think killing in any case is always immoral. The only reason we're justified in killing is because we don't have the power to do something else. Like, for example, if we could, instead of killing someone, teleport them away, that would be a more moral option than killing them. So killing them is not the justified position if we could just teleport them away. The all-powerful Sky Daddy does not have that excuse. He's infinitely powerful. So he doesn't have any justification to kill people because he could always do a better moral option, just teleporting them away or giving them the option to be non-physical. There's lots of infinitely many things you could do that are not just kill them. So God doesn't have the same excuse. Humans only are allowed to kill because they don't have a better option. They don't have the option to just teleport people away. They're forced into this decision because of their lack of power. God doesn't have a lack of power. You can't use that excuse for him.
Well, I would point out a couple things, if I may, very briefly.
Sure, go for it.
First things first, I would say that the idea that it is because of the potential other alternatives is kind of missing the point. We as people who do a lot of the same things, whether it's in a small scale, like, for example, there's racist Americans, or in a large scale, like, for example, the slaughter of the Native Americans, do the very same things that we actually condemn other people for doing and yet justify ourselves in killing those people as you just did. God does not do any of those things. at least until there was some crime committed. And I do want to point out very briefly, you kind of know this inherently. If you didn't, you wouldn't have to argue so much about babies, right? The only reason we bring up babies in the first place is because, oh, well, you can't possibly say these guys are evil, right? I mean, is that not the point?
Yeah, the point is to use the strongest example because we only need one example to prove your position false. So we use the easiest one. Yeah, that's kind of the point. But no, we do say that killing the Native Americans is wrong. It's one of the big things in America now is that we should probably like give them reparations because we mass murdered them, and same with slavery. Like we do admit those things are wrong. Like
right, no, not what I'm saying. Not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we committed these acts, right? We are in some instances we are the self-same people. Right? Like, for example, if you go back to the 1940s, the self-same people who were putting Japanese people in camps are the people who defeated the Nazis. They're one and the same, right? They're also the people who nuked the Japanese, right?
Sure.
So in that scenario, how are we going to justify people who are not only fallible, but explicitly so, evil in many instances? They can take life, but the very person who provided that life in the first place is not allowed to do so?
The who provided it doesn't.
Are we not talking about the flood right now? Like, why are we talking about human beings from like the past and World War II? We're not talking about
because I'm trying to
hold on. Just let me finish my thought real quick. What I'm saying is like, right? You discount babies, but that's the point. But I haven't heard the objection yet, right? So if you're going to say babies are guilty of something, and really what I think we need to get on the table, frankly, is our positions. TJump and my position is it's unethical to murder babies. Is it unethical to murder babies under your two worlds views? Under the Christian worldview?
For us to do it, yes.
No. The action of executing a baby, is it immoral?
For us, yes.
That's not what I said.
Well, that's the answer. You may not like the answer, but that's the answer.
So you're saying that there are some cases where it is okay to murder babies. Is that what you're saying?
I would say that God isn't capable of murder, as you so colloquially will try to put it on him like that.
Execute is the word we want to use. Execute is the word we're using.
Sure.
So yes, in your worldview, it's okay. There are certain cases where it's okay to execute babies.
Execute babies. Well, again, it's not an immoral component to apply to God because he doesn't have the same agency.
Not what I asked.
He's non-temporal. Well, you guys are trying to conflate two things that don't fit. You're asking a loaded question because you want to get an answer you can't get.
No.
And in fact, let me kind of piggyback on that because I could give you a perfect example. It is, in my opinion, immoral for a fallible human being to judge another fallible human being for what he himself has done, which is why Christians take the harsh punishment, or not the harsh punishment, the harsh view on judgment, right? Jesus even says so himself. You have the beam in your own eye and are criticizing the speck in another's eye. But inherent in that is the fact that there's the beam in your own eye. If there's not the beam in God's eye, then that's completely irrelevant, right? And to answer your question plainly, when you say, is it wrong to execute babies? I would state quite plainly, it is not wrong for God to take any life whatsoever for any reason he sees fit. He's the creator. He's the one who established it. He's the one who established morality in the first place. And there is literally nothing he could possibly do that would be immoral because morality is literally understood by virtue of his creating it and setting those laws
Sure.
down.
So then God could have 100 men go in and rape 100 babies, and that would be completely moral if he did that.
Hypothetically speaking, yes. Now he never.
Yeah. So okay, perfect. So God. So basically, it's not. So is it God's nature that makes something moral, or is it what he says that makes something moral?
I don't want to go there yet.
A little bit of both.
I want to address what Smokey said.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, because Smokey said we're making a distinction between two different things.
You're also defending a worldview you don't have, which I find bizarre.
Right. So that's wrong. So we each have a worldview. Our definition of morality is not the same as your definition of morality. You have a contrived, presupposed definition of morality, which I don't agree with. So we're asking questions about your definition of morality.
Okay. Can we have
my
your
problem here is that my definition of morality, anyone who executes babies, like by drowning, is always immoral. That's always the case. It's objectively the case. It is a fact of the case. It is provably the case in all cases. And anyone who agrees with me is going to, I don't have to answer why, because that's not the point of the debate. So anyone who agrees with me sees that you are an immoral monster. You are insane because you can't admit to that. You have to say killing babies and executing them by drowning is totally okay for my God because I want to believe in God.
What happens to the babies after they die?
Wait, that's the point. Is that
what happens to the babies
makes
after
no difference.
they die?
It's
It makes every difference.
No.
Because now you're arguing from your worldview into ours, and it's incoherent.
No. It doesn't make any difference at all. So
it makes every difference.
Executing babies and having a
soul,
and executing babies if they don't have a soul is still immoral either way. It makes no difference.
Yeah,
so
you're just saying it makes no difference.
it's
ridiculous.
Action is immoral even if there's a difference in consequence. Morality is not determined by the reward or punishment after the action. An action is inherently moral or immoral just for the action's sake. So you can't say it's okay to kill babies because of what happens after you execute them. You're still executing babies. It's still immoral.
Well, let me say real quick, I even sympathize with that.
Hold on. Because I'm going to add on because this is the whole point I brought up about the idea of God's nature, right? With the idea he can't do things that are immoral. So if you're going to say God can't be a liar because it goes against his nature to lie, because that's part of his moral being, then he's not going to lie. He can't lie, right? You can't say God can rape. Like these are things like, but it's weird. But when we get to this, when we say executing babies, all of a sudden, well, wait a minute, there's a context for that.
All right.
Well, let me explain that because there's
that's
context
the point
for that amongst human beings as well, right? For example,
yes, morals are subjective for whatever. It's apples and oranges. Like,
where is the subjective context for humans and executing babies? I don't know of any such.
Well, hang on. Actually, to be fair, I mean, there's 900,000 babies executed in this country alone every single year. So, you want to talk about
this is also irrelevant. Human
I
morality is irrelevant to the topic of this debate. We're not talking about objective versus subjective. You guys keep trying to bring it back to it and compare and contrast.
You're
We're
playing
not
worldview hopscotch. You're playing
but that's not the topic of the debate. Yeah, this isn't the topic of the debate. Our objective worldview, our worldview versus your worldview isn't the topic. The topic is the flood of Noah ethical? And in the end, what you guys really should just be saying is, yes, it is morally ethical for God to drown babies.
I'd like to point out I have plainly said that in a one-word answer already. Yes.
No, that's fine.
I agree.
That's fair. That's fair. It's fair. But like at the end though, like we might be hypocrites, right? Let's just grant it. Let's just say Tom and I are moral hypocrites, right? We contradict ourselves with our morals, completely irrelevant, right? In the end, what you're arguing is it's moral to drown babies sometimes, and we're not.
Okay, all right. So let me deal with that for a minute, because first off, I sympathize with Tom a lot, being a deontologist myself, and Skylar, I kind of sympathize with you a lot as well, because essentially what you're saying is it doesn't really matter if I'm hypocritical. What matters is if you're hypocritical, because that's the point of the debate. Is that accurate?
No. The point of the debate is just to see where you guys stand, in my opinion, right? So if you think it's ethical to drown babies, that's fine. I'm just getting it out for the public so people can know what Christianity is represented, right? Now, instead of doing stuff like that, like just saying things like that, just deal with the arguments. Let's not do a bunch of ad hominem attacks. I've been respectful. I haven't said anything negative to you. So I'd like that same respect, right? So please, let's not just talk about how bad the arguments are or this person doesn't make any sense. Let's just actually deal with the arguments at hand.
You're playing worldview hopscotch right now. Okay, you're going back and forth between naturalism and into our worldview to condemn it and then back out again to condemn it again. Okay, and here's the problem. Okay, here's what you guys are ignoring. Okay, which was better? Which was better? And I think TJump maybe should answer this. I think he maybe takes a position that life in itself is in some ways immoral because it's a lot of suffering. So I'd like him to answer this. Which was better? Which was more moral? For the babies in the flood to die or to live in the environment that's painted in the narrative of the text? Whatever they're forced to do is immoral. So if you kill them without their consent, that's immoral. And if you force them to live in a world without their consent, that's immoral. Oh, so there's no right answer for you. It's all no. You can. There could be like save one person or save five, or kill one person or kill five. You can have two options that are both immoral. That's not a problem. There you go. But again, I want to clarify that the issue here isn't comparing worldviews. Comparing worldviews doesn't matter. There's no hopscotch between worldviews. Yeah. What we're doing is we're presenting our worldview, which is killing babies is always wrong. And what we're asking is in your worldview, is executing babies wrong? We're not trying to do a jumping hopscotch here. We're just asking you, in your worldview, do you think drowning babies and executing them is wrong? That's it. We're not doing a hopscotch here. We're just asking the question and saying, in our worldview, is better than yours because we don't. You're running from your own disgusting positions, is what you're doing in order to. See, that's not an argument. That's not an argument. Just hold on. Just hold on. Just saying our positions are disgusting isn't an argument. Well, you won't let me finish. Well, you won't let me finish to point out how they're disgusting. Well, the best thing would be to do is just. Well, listen, I'm not interested in your just opinions of my morality. Yeah, well, I'm trying to get to the argument that supports the opinion, Skylar. You want to have a reaction? Why don't you wait till I'm done? No, well, just get to the argument. Don't talk about our opinion. Let's get your response to Tom. I think I handled an awful lot from TJump in his opening, bro. Why don't you tone it back a notch? Do you need a safe spot or something? Do you need a safe spot? I think it'd be okay. Like, I mean, you're complaining and whining about it. Let's just talk about the subject, except for everything else. I think it's okay for him to call us disgusting because I'm going to call him disgusting back because he thinks it's okay to drown babies. Sure, go for it. No, yeah. I mean, you tell us why it's okay to drown babies. You know, you
All right,
guys
well,
keep
let me
wanting
go
to
ahead and
draw
go
it back to
to
this, to
there
such
is-
a conflation to support your naturalistic view, and that's not how it's going to go. Like, for instance, in the
I didn't say anything
narrative,
about naturalism.
Yeah,
it
we're not
doesn't
talking about
matter.
naturalism
It doesn't
tonight.
matter, dude. It's implied in your worldview.
No,
You
it's
don't
not.
get to see. This is ridiculous. You guys don't even know where you're arguing from. Even in your opening, you're basically saying that you're not arguing from. You're going to go ahead and argue from objective morality, even though you don't have it.
No, that wasn't the
What type
premise of my
debate
argument.
is this?
Also,
No, I
we're not going
literally-
to
I
jump
literally-
into that topic. We're
Wait,
not.
I literally
proof
gave the
objective
premises
morality.
of the argument. So the argument are this: it's objectively wrong to drown, execute innocent babies. That is premise one. That is where I'm arguing from. You can disagree with that if you want. You can agree with it if you want. It doesn't make a difference. That's where we're arguing from. Worldviews don't matter. Past doesn't matter. Executing babies is immorally wrong. Premise one. That's where we're starting. God executes babies. God is immoral. That is the argument. That is what we're arguing. That is the full context. Worldviews don't matter here.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, there's a couple things I think need to be said.
think
So
it's
first
dumb.
off, I think we do need to address, and I understand that it's not the specific point or the explicit point of this debate, but inherently in the question is a worldview versus worldview. Let me tell you why. I explained actually in my opening statement. If God exists, then answering in the I guess it would be in the affirmative in this case, is completely absurd because morality is created by him in the first place. He literally dictates what it's just like. It would be roughly akin to saying, well, you know, George Lucas designed Alderaan wrong. Well, how do you know? He's the one who designed Alderaan. It does what he wants it to do, right? And likewise, it's the exact same thing here with God. You only have a morality, according to this worldview at least, because he's created it. And the only way that you can criticize that morality logically is if indeed he has not created it. So I agree that I don't want to be completely bogged down in that, but you guys need to understand that is certainly a very important question. Because if we grant God's existence, then the debate is over. It's not possible for him to do something immoral.
Well, the argument I'm making is that in our worldview, even if God created morality, God can't make it okay to drown babies. So in our worldview, drowning babies is always going to be wrong, even if God created it. So he's still wrong. He's still immoral if he drowns babies.
I mean, you can claim that if you like, but I mean, I would like to
right.
see the Sims character argue with the designer. You know,
This
what I
isn't
mean?
an
Go right
ontological
ahead.
argument. This is just saying in our worldview, in our perspective.
Well, that's incoherent because you're not in our worldview. You might as well be making a presuppositional.
Wait, Smokey.
We'll hear it. I promise.
The point here is that in our worldview, even if God created morality, he's still a dick for drowning babies. Now, in your worldview, he's not a dick for drowning babies. The point here is we're not making a point that ontologically one of these is possible. That doesn't matter. We don't care. What we care about is that our worldview is better than yours. We are morally superior to you because in our worldview, drowning babies is always wrong. And in your worldview, there can be these special cases where it's okay to drown babies.
Okay, but if
one is true or not is the
like
point.
ground that in something though, then that's just the opinions of Thomas Jump.
Well, no.
Right.
Again, we're not making an argument for the truth of the moral claims here. We're just saying this is our worldview. This is our claims. Whether you want to claim they're true or not doesn't make a difference.
I'm being serious. I'm not trying to get a got you here, but if we're not here to actually make factual claims, then what exactly are we doing? Like, what is even the point of this conversation?
Well, this is going to be problematic for you because you're not going to be able to demonstrate within the hour we have that objective morals exist in the first place. So we might as well just give up this game right now. Because if I ask you to demonstrate your guys' claim, it ain't going to happen, right? I've had this rodeo before. Now, the other aspect of this is how the methodology in which he does this, right? Why not take the souls out of the baby? Why not let the children fall asleep and then not wake up? Why drown them, which is torture? Watching their brothers and sisters, their parents all drown is all torture. So God is also torturing those people. And what about the mentally handicapped? Right? Why do all these people get to violently die when they didn't commit the actions, the evilness that the Bible is referring to?
Well, there's a couple things for sure. So the thing number one, I would say that, and granted, I'll get to your point number two. I'm going to address your point about babies and the mentally handicapped in particular. But just for point number one, the text actually presents us a narrative in which all cognizant human beings had reached a certain level of depravity. And by the way, that's not very hard to imagine. Hypothetically speaking, if the United States legalized pedophilia, it's not hard for us to imagine 2 to 3 generations down the line, most adults actually finding that to be acceptable, right? In fact, such things have happened numerous times in the past with numerous cultures. So understanding that fact, right, that is the narrative that is being presented for us. You can say that that's not true, or if you like, but nonetheless, that is what the Bible says. All men had been evil with the exception of Noah and his family.
Does that
now you
include
say,
the
well,
babies?
what about, say that again?
Does that include the babies?
Well, that's kind of an interesting question. You have to get a little bit thought experimenty with it. So the straight up answer is no. And I would point to Frank Turek's argument that if indeed you, as God, take the life of some being, however you decide to do it. It really doesn't matter because you're not actually taking the life of that being. You're just transporting them to another place, basically.
Do they not feel emotions or pain, these babies? Are you just pretending like babies don't feel emotions or pain?
Do you remember?
Like, are we not gonna talk about the torture part?
Do you
hang on, I'll get to that in a
emotion or
second.
pain
But
when you were a baby?
Well, I do when I was like 4 or 5, and those are still young, innocent children.
Well,
who
stop
aren't evil.
saying babies. Say something
Oh,
better.
well, I'll say children and babies,
Okay,
if that
fine.
makes you feel
Well,
better.
no, it's not
We'll
babies.
on top of it. Okay. Well,
No,
babies turn out too.
I do have memories of when I was a baby and in pain. I was actually, when I was born, I was being strangled by the umbilical cord. You can remember pain from being that early. Yes, that is possible.
Okay, well,
And remembering and feeling are two different things. Remembering and feeling are two different things, right? Just because I don't remember it later on doesn't mean at the time I didn't feel that pain and that struggling.
Well, why is
Just
that?
to throw that out.
Why is that bad? That life is suffering. So what is with that one instance?
Well, apparently you don't think it is bad. I mean, I just don't want to make babies suffer personally. I mean, because I have empathy and I care about them. You don't have to.
Okay,
But that's why I don't want babies to suffer, because I care about them.
You're just making an argument of method. You're just making an argument of method, Skylar.
That's one aspect.
You have an issue of this horrible, evil, disgusting culture being wiped out, and these babies not growing up in it to be tortured and probably raped and murdered.
No.
You want them to be saved and to grow up in this culture to be raped and murdered and destroyed and put in suffering. That's what you want. That's what you guys are clamoring
That's
for.
a really good.
God should have left them alone.
But if you'd like me to hear my position,
God should have left them alone.
I can tell you it instead of I can tell you my position. Yeah. Here, let me explain, James. Let me explain my position real quick. Right? What God should have done is been like, take those babies, moved them over to the Israelite culture, and had them take care of them. Or perhaps not. It doesn't have to be the Israelites. He could also just take care of them, right? You could also be God and provide, right? He has this ability to make food and water and do all these things like create universes and human beings, right? But somehow he has to draw the line with raising babies, right? And all he had to do was just say, soul out, rest, sleep, rest peacefully. Or how about this? How about you stop letting humans be able to reproduce, right? Why don't you make it so humans' sperm and eggs aren't connecting so they can't have any more babies, except for Noah and his family. But what does he do? He chooses the most violent way you could do it, just like all the other examples in the Old Testament when it comes to genocide. Go ahead.
How do you know he didn't take the souls out before the flood came? Right?
Yeah, if you have a biblical justification for that, that would be
absolutely
fine.
I mean, you're the one assuming he didn't. I mean, so I'm wondering if you have a justification.
Well, I don't. Well, it doesn't say that.
You're saying.
Okay, hold on. If you ask me a question, I'll answer it.
Way possible.
Yes.
You're saying it's the worst way possible. So you're assuming it is the worst way possible. So give me your justification.
Sure. Yeah, let me explain
from the text, right?
Yeah. So drought. What's the worst? I'm kind of being when I say worst way possible. I'm kind of like using like expressive language, right? It's torturing and drowning somebody. But I mean, it doesn't say that pink unicorns came in and took all the babies underneath their hoofs and flew them off into the distance, right? But why would I try to argue against that either? So like when you say, hey, prove this negative without any justification. Listen, I can look at the other scriptures in the Bible where God has human beings just slice open babies with swords.
I got a good argument for that, actually.
Yeah. And maybe Tom was
I think we're talking about this portion of text, so let's try to stick.
Sure, I'm just showing consistency, though, how God does things, which is God is very violent to children. Yeah.
If God just wanted to take their souls out, he could have just taken their souls out, and then the flooding is kind of pointless. So he probably didn't do that. So they'd make the flooding would just be irrelevant. Like, why would he take the souls out and then do the flooding? It makes no sense. It's logically inconsistent, which means it's probably he did the flooding, which is consistent with his nature and all the other murdering things I've mentioned beforehand.
It's logically consistent with the character and nature of the entity, because again, you guys are just saying, well, the children die, so that's bad. Okay, but you have no reason why.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said.
No.
And the children apparently are done in a method that Skylar disagrees with, so that's bad.
And that you agree with torturing babies by drowning them.
No,
right?
I don't agree with torturing them.
So why are you complaining about what I'm saying? Is if like this is what Skylar's opinion is if you disagree with it?
Because Skylar, your expectations are unrealistic. They're asinine.
What expectations?
My expectations of an all-powerful God that can do anything logically possible is literally is totally over the top. Can't believe it.
You have such an
have to restore order. Okay, I've got everybody on mute. Just a second. So just to restore order really quick so it doesn't go too crazy. I think that Smokey had given that last challenge. Skylar, did you feel like you had enough time to answer that, or did you want more?
Yeah, I would just say that, like, no, go ahead.
Wait, I wanted to jump in and do the respond to that.
Yeah, let Tom take my.
Are we unmuted now? Can we talk now?
Yeah, you're good.
Wait. You're set. Yep. Thanks.
All right. So yeah, Smokey said that there are restrictions or limitations. So yeah, we have unrealistic. What was it? What was it, Smokey? Unrealistic what?
Unrealistic expectations of the nature of the Christian God claim.
Unrealistic expectations of the nature of the Christian God, who is all powerful. It is unrealistic to expect that the nature of the Christian God is not to drown babies. That is unrealistic. Like, he can create universes, he can create time, he can create morality, but he it's unrealistic after creating all of the universe that he can't not drown babies. That's unrealistic. Okay.
Let's see how free will works differently in the case that he's going to argue here in a second.
No,
babies.
The option was better than the alternative. See, this is the problem. This is what you guys do. You try to leverage a moral dilemma on your side. And when we pitch you, well, what's the better? You're like, I don't know.
I can answer that
because you guys have nothing to contribute. Again,
this is just... Do you want me to answer that?
Sure, go ahead, please.
Okay, something better would be create a universe where every person gets their own world and they get to design it how they please. And if they want, they can go to other people's worlds and they can be physically incapable of other people hurting them. So you just become ethereal, and so someone can't hurt you if you choose to. So it's impossible for anyone to involuntarily pose on anyone else. That's a better option.
You should go be a Mormon. You should be a Mormon then, TJump.
That's not how Mormonism works.
Well, yeah, that's exactly how Mormonism works. Everyone gets their own planet and they all get to populate it themselves. Yeah, that's exactly how it works. That's not the consistency, again, to the Christian God claim.
Well, no, you didn't.
Talking about
consistency. You asked for an alternative. Okay. You asked for a better
that's
alternative.
Not consistent to the Christian God claim. So you're just arguing things outside of our worldview.
I wasn't saying consistent with the God claim. I know that in your worldview, anything God does is going to be consistent with God. Anything he doesn't do is not consistent with God, obviously. But that's the point, is here is a very easy way to make things better. Don't drown babies. And there's lots of different ways to not drown babies. One of them would be the one I suggested. One of them would be the way Skylar suggested, where we just give babies caretakers that are like robots or something, and they can take care of the babies and not drown them.
Okay.
Either of those are realistic things an all-powerful being could do, but your God can't do them for some reason, namely because he's a moral monster who likes to drown and execute babies, which is just a part of his nature.
If you're going to judge, here's the problem, TJump. You're not willing to judge the text inside the text. You want to keep jumping outside the narrative. Do you believe that? Okay, so God was immoral for wiping out the people here and all the babies that were part of it, including the babies that were part of the Nephilim.
I don't even know. I don't know what the Nephilim is, so I can't.
Well, it doesn't specifically actually say that in the scripture. It doesn't actually say the Nephilim.
I don't know what the Nephilim is. So
there was a confusion and of the bloodline. There was an infusion of something bad. There were perverted bloodlines of some kind attributed to the Watchers. This is inside the narrative text. So part of the action that God did in the narrative text was to wipe out these perverted bloodlines, which is why when it first Noah, it says he was a man righteous in his generations, which alludes to something to his bloodline, which is why it also gives a genealogy in Genesis 5. So there is something inside the narrative of text that you guys will not address or judge, which is the fact that there was a necessity to drop, basically wipe these out from some of this code. Oh yes, no, please. I'm sure Dr. Josh gave you some good tidbits on this.
Well, actually,
he actually hold on, but but actually he did. But what you're saying can't be possible. Are you saying the goal of the flood was to get rid of the Nephilim because they still exist later on after the flood?
Exactly. Well, I don't personally take.
So what the hell did you bring up the Nephilim for if that's not relevant to what the actual?
Well, no, it is relevant. I'm saying it's not relevant to your point because I don't believe in a worldwide flood. So it's not relevant.
But you were bringing up the Nephilim as if this is why God was flooding things.
Yeah, you don't get to beg the question to make the argument against God and then not follow through.
I don't know what you're saying now. You're actually not dealing with what I'm saying.
There were perverted bloodlines, and
that was the reason for the flood, right? It was the reason for the flood? Yes. Okay. Well, then God failed at his goal. If that was one of the reasons, he didn't kill all the Nephilim with the flood because they survived.
Wait, I don't understand Smokey's point. So, Smokey, are you saying that these like diluted bloodlines were not human babies; they were Nephilim babies, and so it's okay to murder Nephilim babies instead of human babies?
They were, as in Jewish tradition. Maybe Skylar will probably back this up. They were Gaian or earthborn. They weren't really quite human. There was something abominable.
Were they
something
conscious?
Abominable about them. Well, I don't know. I don't know that much about them. I'd have to go into probably one of Michael Heiser's books to get thorough answers on that. But there was inside the narrative text, there's something that needed to be wiped out here, something that had been perverted in the human race.
Okay,
But it
so
didn't happen. It didn't work. That's the
Noah-
point. It didn't.
Hold on.
Doesn't work.
Hold
It didn't work.
Hold on.
It's like-
And Noah was preaching righteousness to people to try to get them to give up their lives and come onto the boat and be saved with him. He was a preacher of righteousness. This is what the text says. So it's not like God just sent the flood willy-nilly. He was trying to actually get people to come to him and be saved, as he said many prophets before him. So these are the actions of a moral God trying to reach out to people. It's up to them to say yes or no. And when they say no and they get judged, that's no longer on him, and you guys want to put it on him.
Wait, so I want to understand your point here.
Hold
So
on. Hold on.
Okay.
I'm almost done. So you don't get to ignore the other parts of the narrative text to condemn things inside the narrative. You have to follow through.
So you're saying that God didn't actually drown any human babies. He only drowned Nephilim
Not
babies.
any. No, I'm sure there were some, and they got ushered into the hands of the Almighty God instead of having
who
to
cares
suffer in
about the
that
Nephilim babies?
god-awful,
It's irrelevant to our
horrible
point.
environment. Yeah.
So
And it doesn't make sense. Nephilim doesn't make any sense
Ignore
with
the
it.
Nephilim.
Let's-
In our worldview, it does. You're inside our narrative. You
Well,
don't
no,
step
well,
out-
thing
it doesn't.
that I
It's
think
not.
that
It
we
doesn't.
can get a response.
let
you
me
don't
jump
get
in
to
here.
step
Skylar,
outside to say it
let
doesn't
me
make
jump
sense.
in here.
We've had Tom go for a while. I know that I think Skylar's trying to bring
I
up
had, like,
something he had
5
brought up
seconds.
earlier that I don't know. If
I'll
we-
yield to CJ after this because I've been talking a bit.
Wait, I still wanted to have one point here. So if you grant that God drowned some human babies, that's all that matters to our point. The Nephilim are irrelevant. God drowned babies is
And your
still
point
true.
has no foundation. It's a house on clouds. I yield.
That's, again, irrelevant. God
To you
drowned
it
babies.
is. To you it is because you have grotesque moral thinking. Go ahead.
Yeah,
All
but
right, all right.
drowning
So-
babies
so
is
here's-
wrong. It's grotesque, for sure.
Here's the problem with this justification, right? You use it as a justification. Well, there's also Nephilim, but that isn't biblically backed. That the reason the flood happened was to
Yeah, it
also
is.
get rid of the Nephilim. If you would like to quote the scripture, you can quote it.
Okay, sure.
Because Genesis 6 talks about Nephilim, but it doesn't talk about the flood being for the Nephilim. Okay. Also, it doesn't make any sense because God failed. If God's goal with what the flood was to kill the Nephilim, your God's incompetent
No.
because he failed and the Nephilim survived.
Again, dude, you're
And
missing
once
my
again,
point.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it was a local flood or a worldwide flood, even though they literally say that he would kill all of mankind in the scripture, right? And so it doesn't like all of mankind everywhere, because that's what the scripture actually says, all of mankind. So, and this other idea that like as if these people at the
I need to
time knew about the
personalize
whole entire world. So, anyways, if you have the scripture that says
I need
that
to
what
personalize it,
happened,
Skylar.
Let's go.
Because
We'll kick it back to Smokey or CJ if you want to respond to that. Argument.
oh yeah, CJ, I'm sorry, man. I kind of go ahead.
No, it's all good. I'm listening to the conversation and all that. Everything's good. So there is a couple things though, because I think that they're being kind of ignored, and I think that these are. And first off, let me actually say, because there's a couple things I need to respond to as far as questions that were directed to me that I never actually necessarily addressed. So to answer one of Skylar's earlier questions, is something wrong because God decided so, or is it wrong because it's outside of his nature? The answer to that question, in my opinion, would be yes. From our perspective, it is a divine command thing. He commanded it, therefore that's the way that it is. But the reason that he commanded it is because it's an inherent part of his nature. So it's not really an either or thing. I don't buy the Epicurean paradox's foundation, I guess, is the point there. The other thing that I would say is that, we keep hearing, well, worldviews are irrelevant. But again, they really are not, because once again, if the morality is created by the Judeo-Christian deity, then it is not even possible for him to work outside of what is moral. And I want to be clear here. I'm here to debate truths, right? I'm not here to debate necessarily opinions. I'm answering the question, was it ethical for Noah's flood to occur? Factually, yes. Not in my opinion, yes. This isn't whether or not I like the color red, right? The reason that I am claiming that is multifaceted, but it starts with a foundation of it's not even possible for God to do something outside of the morality that he himself established, because he himself established it. Again, it would be like saying that Alderaan did not fulfill its purpose. Well, you don't know that. Only George Lucas knows that because he created it, right? So, I just don't see how we could possibly not get into the worldview argument. I mean, you have to justify in some way that this is any more than just your opinion on the color red.
You mind if I respond to that real quick? So,
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, please.
The worldview thing is, we're not trying to say our worldview is supported by this other objective morality standard. What we're saying is we're contrasting the two worldviews and saying which can account for the data better. Killing babies is wrong. Our worldview says this is the case.
But you just said data. What data?
killing babies is wrong. That's the data.
Wait, well, that's not data.
Not
though.
data.
No. So we're saying that if you as a person agree with this premise one, killing babies is wrong, then compare these two worldviews. Our worldview says killing babies is wrong. Their worldview says it's okay in certain cases.
Let's try to.
Then you
let's
would
try to
reject their hypothesis and accept ours because it better explains the data of that you
let's-
accept this premise.
Let's try to see how objective your stance really is that you're trying to take here.
Again, it's just saying if premise one is true, then they're wrong, kind of thing. I don't need a support here. It's just the premise of the argument.
Is it
We're not here to demonstrate objective morals. This is an objective moral.
Yeah, I
debate.
know it isn't, but you guys still have to be able to answer for the fact that you're condemning this. You don't get to condemn this and say, oh, we don't have to justify why we're condemning this. That's nonsensical and it's cowardly.
I can tell you why I justify it if you'd like.
Well, can I? I think I'd rather ask a question here.
Okay, yeah, ask a question.
Okay, so would you? I know, Skylar. I think you're pro-life, aren't you? I'm pretty sure you're pro-life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
That's correct.
So, but you're also pro-life, but with contingencies, right? There's some instances where it's okay to do an abortion.
Well, if the baby's not going to live, or the mother and the baby are going to die,
What if the baby's going to have a potentially painful existence or some sort of dilapidated,
like a very short, painful existence, like a day or two?
Well, I don't know.
The
Just
whole entire time?
A type of pain.
I mean, this is not black and white, and my morality is not really relevant here. I'm pro-life in general. I don't condone executing babies.
Here's the problem.
I'm pro-choice, by the way.
You're again. This is what you guys keep skipping over to avoid it, and I'm going to try to draw just a bullseye on it. Okay, you're leveraging a moral dilemma. Because of the environment, because of what mankind had chosen to do, there was no other option other than wiping them out. That was the righteous decision. Now, you can pontificate all day long about how God should have transported them out of there onto a different earth or put them on clouds and stuff, but that's a violation of the narrative of the text of the fall of man. So again, you're pulling outside of the worldview inside the text to critique it, and it's nonsensical. If you're going to critique it for being evil and wrong, you have to stay inside that worldview, or else it's just incoherent. It makes no sense. If you guys are going to justify it from your worldview as being wrong, then you're going to have to say why. And if you're going to come in our worldview to say
I tried earlier, but you wouldn't let me do it.
And if you're going to come into our worldview to say it's wrong, then you have to stay there and stick with the narrative.
Sure.
Right.
Okay.
Right,
Well,
no,
let me explain. I mean, we can explain why it's wrong. Yeah. But,
So,
yeah.
if this was an internal critique of your worldview, then we would have to stay in your worldview. This is not an internal critique
You're
of your
doing
worldview.
both.
No, so I'm not doing an internal critique of you at all.
Yeah,
What I'm
well,
saying
otherwise you're begging the question God
wait,
exists.
Wait, Smokey. So I'm saying there is an objective morality. Killing babies is always wrong. Your God kills babies. Your God is immoral based on this independent standard. So I'm not doing an internal critique of your worldview. What I'm saying is, here is my worldview where killing babies is always wrong. Your God is killing babies. So if you agree with me, if the audience agrees with me that killing babies is wrong, then obviously you would then come to the conclusion the God of the Bible is immoral.
You guys
And so
are
all I'm
still
trying to do is get you to admit you
dodging
think it's
the
okay to
moral
kill babies in your
You
world.
guys are still dodging the point because you're just still leveraging the moral dilemma.
Which points?
Which the moral dilemma that there was no good version. It was either let the babies grow up and suffer in this horrible, awful environment. They probably wouldn't have lived long anyway, or take their lives out with everyone else in one quick catastrophic.
That's a false dichotomy. You're going to have to demonstrate that that's a true dichotomy.
What are you talking about?
You're saying
because
that's in God's
ahead, Tom,
nature, those
explain
are
that.
the only two options. In God's nature, that's the only two
In
options.
the
If
nature
this
of the
was-
text with the fallen flesh,
Right.
yes.
In the nature of the text, these are God's only two options. So
Right.
if we were doing an internal critique of your worldview, we would have to stick with that. We're
Right.
not doing an internal critique of your worldview. If I was God, if I was all powerful like your God was, I could do something
That is
different.
an internal critique, sir. I just
No,
don't
this-
think
this
you
is-
know
this
what an
is-
internal critique is.
No, an internal
This
critique
is
is
nonsensical.
using the premises of your worldview to show
Yes,
a contradiction.
like
in your
God
worldview.
exists.
I'm not doing that. I'm not
Yeah,
using.
you are. You're
No,
begging the
Smokey,
question
Smokey,
God exists to make
Smokey,
your
Smokey,
argument.
Stop, Smokey,
Oh,
stop.
this is ridiculous.
Smokey, stop. So I'm saying in my worldview, if I was all powerful or had I don't even have to be all powerful. I just have to be sufficiently more powerful. Here is a better option I could do. And so like, if we contrast my worldview where if I was slightly more powerful than me, not all powerful, and I could teleport the babies to make them be safe or to move them to Scandinavia or someone to be taken care of by non-evil Canaanites or whatever, or non-evil Nephilim, that would be more moral than drowning the babies. Now, supposedly in your worldview, God is more powerful than me.
Cool.
In
And
my
what
worldview.
happens when they grow up? What do they turn into?
They can turn into whatever they choose to turn into.
Oh, so the same
That's-
thing
that's-
all over again, and then he just keeps doing that?
It's not okay
Over and
to
over
kill
again.
babies just because, well, in the future they might turn out bad. Like, that's not moral. It's still killing babies.
It's really what you're arguing. In the end, you're arguing the ends justify the means.
Oh, it's
kill babies because bad babies become bad people.
What I'm arguing is
address
you
your
guys
question?
again just want to leverage a moral dilemma where there isn't a right answer, and you do it from outside of our worldview, and then challenge us and jump back in to make the point. The fact that you're even begging the question to challenge God at all shows that you're making an internal critique. TJump. This is as ridiculous as when you said life could emerge without a universe. This is absurd.
There is
you just admitted there's no answer to your question. You just literally then admitted that there's no
I didn't. It's just you guys
just said there's no good answer to it. You said there's no good answer to this moral dilemma that we just
cannot possibly get it. That's astounding.
So I do have a good answer. I have a correct answer. I have a correct answer for that, which is don't drown babies. That is the correct answer. And there are infinitely many ways to not drown babies. That is the correct answer.
Your other options are incoherent to the narrative and the claim. How many
I don't
times
care
you want
about
me
your
to say
word.
it?
Your God is evil. I'm not asking for your
From your
God's
worldview,
answer.
which you have not taken coherently.
Smokey, go ahead, Smokey.
Okay, yeah, I need to let CJ probably get in here too. I'm sorry.
Well, and again, I do obviously think that is a good point to stress, because you can say it's, and again, this is why I say you need to make some sort of it doesn't have to be the entire point, but we at least need some sort of justification, at least one justification for what you're saying, because otherwise this is a conversation about who likes the color red more than blue, right? It's simply opinions and they don't matter. And I'm not here to debate opinions. I want truth claims. Is it actually factually wrong to kill babies? And if so, why? Yes. And by the way, if so, why? When we say that, we do have to take into the context, of course. If so, why is contingent on the fact that we're saying, would it be wrong for the person who provided these babies this life in the first place to take their life? Now, you can say yes. I know you said yes. Why?
Well, I don't even have to answer why. I can just say
you have to answer why, though, because otherwise this is just it's just your opinion.
No. Again, you're not understanding how the debate works. I can present a premise, and if my premise seems more reasonable than your premise, I win the debate. So I don't have to provide some kind of.
That's just not accurate at all.
That's not accurate at all. That's nonsensical. So whatever TJump says must be how it is.
1 + 1 = 2. I don't need to prove 1 + 1 = 2. I don't need to provide a deductive proof and show you how Bertrand Russell has this 64-page proof of how 1 + 1 = 2. I can say in my worldview 1 + 1 = 2, and your worldview, you're rejecting that. Your worldview is dumb. That's what we're doing here. We don't need to.
But in that if you have that conversation with me, not only do you have to prove that, but on top of that, if you're not proving that, then the conversation is completely irrelevant. And by the way, just for the record, you don't need 62 pages to prove it. And that's why I said we don't need to make it the entire point of the debate. We need something, just something. All I need to do is put 1 stick, 2 stick. Here's 2 sticks. The value is 2, right?
Maybe this, at some point, we might want to navigate toward a final topic related, just because we've covered this territory a lot. But Skylar,
and I do want to address the judgment claims for sure.
Well, you asked for You asked for a proof. So I'll give you a proof. Drowning babies is immoral. That's the 1 + 1 = 2. Drowning babies is immoral. I don't.
That's not a proof, though. You're making a loaded claim without justifying it.
I'm happy with that proof. Drowning babies is immoral. You can disagree with that, but I'm happy with that proof.
Listen, guys, you guys can disagree. This is unless you're not going to be able to do the same thing either. You're not going to be able to.
You have no justification for anything you say, Skylar.
Middle of my sentence interrupt the beginning of yours. Is that what happened there?
Let's give
because I was just talking and explaining what's going on here. So, right, listen, we're not going to play the game where you say, hey, you have to prove your morality is really, really real, right? When you haven't done so, right? Right now, it is opinion versus opinion because you don't have anything other than an opinion at this point. All right. I think we are perfectly comfortable. If we want to say this debate, you guys want to argue, hey, under our worldview, it is ethical to execute babies sometimes. Perfectly fine. We're happy to say we just have a disagreement of opinion right on it. We don't think it's ethical. Now, if you want justifications from me, I can explain it, right? The reason I don't think it's moral to drown or execute babies is first, they're innocent. One, they have no guilt. Second, I don't want to harm babies. I don't want to hurt them. My every emotion in my body is like, hey, this is a baby. Kiss the baby, don't fucking cut it open or drown it, right? Now, if your morality, right, doesn't tell you that, we can't help you, right? If you're going to follow Bronze Age morality, right, and you want to follow the Old Testament God who endorses slavery, genocide, and every other little thing, right, go ahead. But don't pretend like you need an objective answer. You need an objective moral standard for our opinion to have any value. If you don't value that, babies shouldn't be drowned, I can't help you with it.
Yeah, just to clarify one thing.
just-
So to me, drowning babies is wrong is equally like as supported and obvious as 1 + 1 = 2. So if you don't want to grant that, I mean, that's on you. That's like saying 1 + 1 does not equal 2 from my perspective or from anyone who shares
Okay,
my
but-
worldview's perspective.
Let's
Sorry, go ahead.
what we'll do. Let's hear from both of these guys now from the yes side, and soon enough we'll go into the
Aren't we
Q&A.
the yes
If
side?
either
Aren't they
side
the no
wants
side?
to, hold on, I'm talking. If either side wants to basically, if they would like to defer to the other, that's awesome. Otherwise, I'll take us into Q&A in about 5 minutes.
Go ahead, CJ, and maybe I just have one quick thing to say at the end. Go ahead.
Well, so I would just like to say a couple things. The first thing is that whether or not something is intuitively obvious does not actually, first, it doesn't make it correct, and second off, it doesn't explain it. For example, it's intuitively obvious that you stick to the ground on the planet Earth. However, that has nothing to do with whether or not gravity is a thing as far as the force. It means that we need to explain that force that is gravity, right? And of course, people have done that now. But the fact that it's intuitively obvious doesn't mean anything. Likewise, there are things that can be intuitively obvious that are false. I would argue that if you go straight on just pure intuition, the Earth is flat. But we know the Earth is not flat. We have evidence, positive evidence, the Earth is not flat. So not only does it not actually give an explanation, but on top of that, it just so happens that intuition can be wrong all the time. In fact, it very often is. And I'll give you another perfect example, the miasma theory of disease, right? The miasma theory of disease is blatantly obvious because you walk into a place, it smells bad, and now people are sick. Seems like pretty good logic, but it's wrong. It's not true, right? And so that is why I think that is such an important question. Now, I want to move on really quick because I don't feel like I was addressing it, and maybe it should be addressed. There is a question here about judgment in and of itself. Now, Skylar, you made the claim, and I appreciate you making the claim because it's something that, to deal with substantially, that my justification is that babies are innocent. Now, I'm going to ignore that I do believe innocent is kind of a loaded claim, like innocent of what? Let's just ignore that for a second, just because I understand that that's not going to be the point of the debate.
Yeah.
Let's assume for a second that basically the question is whether or not are they innocent rather than innocent according to what? Well, according to the biblical scriptures, no human beings are innocent. And I think that's it. You want to talk about intuitively obvious? That is intuitively obvious. We have seen time and time and time and time again.
What are babies guilty of? What are babies guilty of?
Virtually everything in human nature is repulsive. I will be honest with you.
I'm sorry. Action.
Let's give CJ just a smidge to finish up because it's been.
Well, wait. We're trying to interact back and forth.
No. Hold on. Let me finish. What I meant by smidge is, I mean, CJ, you've been going a while, so I want to give you like a smidge more of time, and then we've got to kick it over.
Okay. Well, so basically, what I'm saying is, human beings, and you look at the youngest of children, they are naturally selfish. They
babies. Tell me how a baby is sinful, or what does it do that's evil? How is a baby sinful?
Everything that a human being, period. I don't care what.
No. I understand those, but just give me one thing a baby does that's sinful, or something like that.
I think he's saying human nature is sinful, therefore babies are sinful because they're human nature.
Yeah, but that's such a it doesn't mean that we're just nature. Nature
babies
is sinful.
Don't do a sin in a typical sense because again, they're beyond the age of accountability. So whatever they would do wouldn't be considered sinful, even if it was wrong.
Okay, so what is about their nature then? So what is it that they're basically because it's just the way their nature is? It's okay to execute them. That's what I'm trying to understand.
No, it's not that they're okay to execute them. It's that
it is, of course,
better than the alternative. Because the alternative was to grow up in an environment that was sick and horrible and painful, and probably they'd have.
Yeah, that's a false dichotomy. That's a false dichotomy.
Their parents killed them because their parents were evil and horrible and disgusting.
You can't back that up historically.
No, of course I can't, because Noah was a preacher of righteousness. It says it.
How are you going to back something?
Are you going to let me finish? We have to argue from the text, bro. You don't get to just pull out to your worldview every time you get caught in a cycle. Okay, here's the issue. Noah says that it was a preacher of righteousness. Okay, so he was trying to get people to stop what they were doing. The parents didn't stop. They killed their children.
It doesn't articulate that. It does not articulate that in the Bible. You're making stuff up. That doesn't say that in the Bible.
All right, I'll pull it up.
Question. So
say that they're killing their children pre-flood.
We do have to go into the Q&A pretty quick.
If it's the parents' fault because that the children are dead, then does that mean that it's the parents' fault of the Jews' children who are dead because Hitler killed them because they didn't stop being Jews? Is it the parents' fault?
What are you talking about? You're talking
But
about?
you're saying that it's the parents' fault that the children died. They're morally culpable. Even though God did the drowning.
They kept sinning and they didn't follow Noah onto the boat. Yeah, so
they
killed their
didn't do
children.
what God said. So God mass murdered them and their kids. Therefore, it's the parents' fault.
The kids got to go to heaven. The parents were judged. And
I don't care about heaven. God
We're
drowned them.
not talking about where they go. We're talking about what happened.
No, you guys just want to keep an ongoing cycle of it. Just like TJump's ridiculous example. Okay, move them. Okay, they grow up, still have free will. They do the same thing over again. Okay, move them. It's just the constant infinite regression. Your guys' examples to solve it are all nonsensical and stupid.
Talking more about us than the actual topic.
No, dude, because you can't.
Our arguments are bad. We're terrible. We're awful.
I'm giving you an
I get it. But actually, and I'm giving you an example. You've created a false dichotomy. You created a false dichotomy that wasn't what happened. You made stuff that was not biblical. It wasn't biblical. What you were arguing. Sorry.
Well, I did want
hate to cut us
what
short.
CJ said, because CJ mentioned that intuitions don't prove anything. You're right. Intuitions don't prove anything. Just like I say that 1 + 1 = 2 doesn't prove 1 + 1 = 2. But it's so intuitively obvious to me that counts as significant enough to be sufficient to just believe it on that.
Let's go longer. Let's go longer.
We've got a lot of questions, and so I do want to try to get through as many of these as possible. Thanks for your question. First, from Dave Gar, who asks, says, thank you for your service, TJump. Semper Fi. I didn't know you were a Marine.
Absolutely not. I wouldn't qualify. I wouldn't pass the psych test.
Next. Well, Maynard saves. But yes, thank you to anybody who served for real. And Maynard saves, thanks for your question, says, I smoked a doobie with Tom's chair back in the summer of '79. Under his claws, ramen.
Ramen under his claws.
There it is. So Mothra J Disco, thanks for your question, says CJ is proof the education system is failed.
It's perfectly fine that you believe that. I'll actually, to be perfectly fair with you, you can't pin me against the education system because I'm a high school dropout. So
they're just throwing a big old glob of poop at you, CJ. Next up, Steven Steen, thanks for your question, says atheism is the Florida of faith-based beliefs.
How dare he? How dare he?
Next up, iPhone Musings, thanks for your super sticker. Appreciate it. Love the support. Appreciate your positivity. Converse Contender, good to see you. Says, is it wise to judge God according to human normative ethics?
I'm totally okay with judging drowning babies to be wrong. Like, I think that's obvious enough that, yeah, we can judge God for that one. That's pretty clear. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I don't want to hang out with a baby drowner. Like, it's just something that I don't really feel like it would be a good place for me to hang out with someone who drowns babies or all the other violent stuff that he does. Like, that wouldn't be the kind of person I know you wouldn't want to hang around with. Like, think about it. Someone's like, yo, I drown babies. You're going to be like, not today, folks. Not today.
Your alternatives are worse.
Next up, movie theory. Tom's old buddy says, T-Hump apparently missed the topic LOL. Classic troll. Finishing with YOLO. You can respond if you feel you need to, Tom, but you don't have to.
Yeah, it was the same as Smokey's introduction. Like, my introduction was meant to give backing to the original topic, which I did address at the very end. I gave an actual premise argument that this was the topic. God drowned babies. Drowning babies is immoral. God is immoral. So I did actually address the topic. I also addressed other things in addition to it as a preamble.
Gotcha. Thanks for your question. From Sunflower says, if someone would rather die than live in solitary confinement on Mars or some island after being teleported away, how is killing them more wrong?
I'd say it wouldn't be. I'd say if they want to die, it's moral to kill them if they choose that. So if the babies grew up and said, we don't want to live anymore, then it would be moral to end their lives at that point, but not before, only if they voluntarily chose to desire that.
Gotcha. And Awkward Saint, thanks for your... By the way, Awkward Saint, if you guys remember our guest who, if I remember right, he argued that the moon landing was forged. Don't forget it. His question is, he says, yo, the flood was sent to wipe out the Nephilim, the sons of the fallen, who contaminated the human race's genetics to try and stop Jesus from being born for our salvation. Already kind of covered this. If you feel like you need to address it more, I think that it's kind of an objection toward our atheist guests.
Yeah,
Sir,
I'll just
if I could just real quick, can I tell him to please come to my channel for a conversation? And please go ahead.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I would just say if that's the case, your God failed, which means your God fails at things. which doesn't seem biblical, right? Because if it was the goal to kill the Nephilim, why do they show up later on after the flood? It's sort of problematic here. It's
Gotcha.
probably because that stuff about the Nephilim was added to the Bible much later.
Well,
Next
there's the
up,
Iron Chariots thing too.
It's
So.
Yeah.
Pizzazoo. Don't let them fool you. It's stupid horror energy striking again. Says,
Oh,
if I create an AI that becomes sentient and self-aware and then torture it, is that not wrong merely because I'm its creator?
Well, I'd say a couple things, actually. So the first thing is I think that there's a little bit of a confusion of terms. I defer to J.R.R. Tolkien's theory of subcreation. Humans do not create anything. We never have, we never will. We simply put pieces that already exist together. There is nothing new under the sun, as Ecclesiastes says. So it's not actually a straightforward comparison, though, there. Secondly, I would argue that self-awareness and consciousness is not what makes killing something wrong. In fact, there are very intelligent animals that people don't have a problem with killing numerous times, like chimpanzees, dogs, dolphins, etc. What makes killing something wrong in this particular context is the fact that it's human. Now, there is that. I will admit that this does not fully do justice to this question. It's a philosophically loaded question, I believe, but it's not a proper comparison, number one. And number two, I just think that you have to in some way argue that it's not necessarily human beings itself, the fact that we're human beings ourselves, right, that makes it wrong, but that it has some level of consciousness, or what we would philosophically term as personhood, which of course leads you into very dicey territory with people like the mentally handicapped, comatose, so on and so forth.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, just because it's been a while. Thank you for your question. This one comes in from Mothra J. Disco, who says, Smokey is going personal, and it is the sign of defeat. Smokey?
Yeah, if he calls personal, asking them to simply substantiate the worldviews that they're judging from is somehow getting personal. Yeah, dude, I don't think you're paying attention.
Next.
I think it was the attacks on the arguments.
Maynard
my worldview
saves.
is Johnny and Babies is wrong. That's my worldview.
Conclusion to the argument.
Next up, Maynard Saves, thanks for your question, said, why does it matter where they go? What's the problem with abortion if they go to heaven? And is abortion the only guaranteed way to get into heaven?
That's a great question, actually, and it draws exactly along the lines of we don't have the moral agency to take life. That's not given to us. It's something that has to be delegated by God. So God takes life. When he takes life, he's allowed to take life because he gives life. So you're not entitled to any life. And this is what the atheists believe, that is once you're born, God somehow, you're entitled to a certain amount of life if there is a God. That's just not how it works in our fallen environment. So again, they're just challenging our worldview from inside theirs, but saying they're doing the opposite, which is why this debate has been very frustrating. Their positions are indefensible. That's why they won't defend them.
Next, Iron Zombie has words for you, Smokey. Says, Smokey lost this debate.
Oh, okay.
Next,
appreciate it.
Thank you for your question from Richard Ashton, who says, what about 80% of the animals on the other side of the world that never got a golden ticket?
He's going to have to answer that.
I mean, and I would also just simply point out that, like, I mean, if we're gonna actually go that far, if our hatred of God is that strong, that, well, what about the deer? Well, I mean, what about the deer that your dad killed last week? I mean, get out of here with that. That's nonsense.
Next up, Red Knight 821. Thanks for your question. Says, how can atheists argue from moral superiority without a moral standard? If the world is just here for no reason or evolution, then they have no argument. There is no moral law without a moral law giver, just person versus person's opinion.
Actually, let me take that one because I'm a moral realist. So I believe there is objective morality without a God, like most moral philosophers who are mostly atheists. So morality, objective morality can easily be had without a God, and it's more experts in the field are actually moral realists who are atheists. So you can have an objective morality without a God, and I do have an objective morality without a God. The reason I didn't bring it up today was because I didn't want to get off topic. It's not relevant to the debate. Like, yes, we can have objective moralities too.
Next, thanks for your question from Robert Luscombe, who says, why were animals tortured and killed during the flood as well?
Again, I mean, are we going to start condemning every hunter and farmer in the world? I mean, look, here's my problem with people who start arguing with stuff like that. You have so much bigger fish to fry if you have a problem with the killing of animals. And by the way, I'd like to say this as somebody who is probably going to end up being vegetarian myself. I actually do kind of have a little bit of sympathy for the animals. However, if you're going to sit up here and go eat a hamburger and then condemn God for the killing the deer, I mean, I just don't know how to deal with that. That's absurd.
Is there no answer there for the question, or was it just like deflecting and talking about how people don't have the right to ask that question?
Well, I think that is an answer to the question, because in
why
reality,
didn't God just spare the animals and only kill the people?
From CJ now that Skylar asked.
Yeah.
Well, because in reality, it's a little bit akin to saying something along, there were reports of Nazis who had Jewish spouses and stuff like that, and they would get these exemptions, right? Oh, the Nuremberg laws don't apply to you certain times, depending on how high up they were. And it obviously depends, because lower people would obviously not get these same exemptions. If you're going to sit up here and start saying something like, oh, it's wrong for you people to actually associate with Jews, while you have an exception for yourself, then I don't even care what you have to say, right? You're absurd and contradictory on your face. So I would say that is an answer to the question.
The problem is you don't know who asked that question. How would you know anything about their worldview? Maybe that was a Christian who asked that question. They wanted to have more knowledge so that when they talk to atheists, they would be better prepared. Right. But you just assumed what their worldview was instead of actually answering the question and deflecting. Like, that's not how we do debates.
Since this objection is for CJ, I'm going to give him the last word. Then we got to move on to the next one.
So I'll grant that. And basically, the question, I guess, in that case would be, assuming that, let's just say I'm a vegan, right? So why
No. Just speak from yourself. Just speak from your worldview and tell us why. Just answer the question from your worldview.
No, right. I understand that. But what I'm saying
is 30 seconds, and then I automatically must move on to the next one.
Absolutely. The reason I'm saying assume that I am a vegan is just because then that objection of, well, you're going to go eat a hamburger while judging God for killing the deer, right? That doesn't apply to you anymore if you're a vegan or a vegetarian or something along those lines. So how would I answer the question to that person? And the answer is simply justify to me that human life and animal life are the same. I would argue they're not, and that the taking of animal life is something that we as caring species do, but is not necessarily a moral imperative.
Next, Robert Luscombe, thanks for your statement, who says, TJump's chair makes a better argument than CJ and Smokey.
It's funny how you guys would just criticize no matter what. So it really almost doesn't mean anything anymore.
Next,
like no matter.
It's Pizzazu. Stupid Horror Energy says, if the point was to wipe out the Nephilim, what are they still doing walking around in Numbers 13?
Yeah, I didn't say it was the point. I said it was one of the components of the flood. And that's the thing. They wanted to draw it as the whole purpose. And that wasn't even my argument. It's that you don't get to ignore components of the narrative in order to make your case. That's what I was saying.
Alex Gross, thanks for your support. Appreciate it. Let me know if you want to attach a question to it. Jimmy Winburn, thanks for your super chat. Said, hey, James. Hey, back at you. Appreciate it. Bishop Martin, thanks for your question as well. Says, does being ugly nullify one's arguments? Please answer everyone.
No.
I think that was for you, James.
Very good.
Well, I'm obviously flawless in every conceivable way, so the question's not directed to me. Obviously, I play.
Did this come up in the debate? I'm like confused by it.
I know, right?
Next,
this definitely came up in the debate for sure.
Jungle Jargon.
Uh-oh.
That's right. Skylar's old buddy says, ask Skylar Fiction and TJump why they think babies are not going to be horrible humans.
They could be, but it's still immoral to kill them. So killing babies is wrong, even if they are horrible humans.
Immoral to kill baby Hitler?
Yes, it's immoral to kill anyone ever under any circumstances, no matter what.
Yeah, I would say killing baby Hitler would be pretty immoral too. And the way that this Christian is talking about is if they're human beings or robots, they're destined to be evil, monstrous beings, right? Like we act like human beings within the world we live in don't have great potential for the things that you would call good under a Christian, and maybe as someone under secular, what the secular moral system would view as good. So this is just a weird thing, as if like children don't have a big part of the environment they grow up in. Like if God took those babies, put them in a safe environment, raised them by good moral people, might be
Next.
okay. Or like I said, once again, just
he
don't
tried
let
that.
the people read. Just don't let people reproduce. You can stop sperm and egg. If God can drown babies, he can stop a sperm from going through an egg for an entire group of people. Seems more reasonable than violently drowning a little baby. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
Next up, Movie Theory says, title, was, in all caps, the flood wrong? Equals internal critique.
No,
Thank
because
you.
wrong isn't an assessment of what theists think is wrong. Obviously, theists don't think it's wrong. The point is we're saying is that a normal, sane human being is going to think it's wrong. That's what the wrong is. It's not.
TJump, you don't get it. If it was
Next up,
natural,
I
it wasn't
do have
wrong.
to give. I'll let this go for a little bit because we let some other ones go.
What did you say, Smokey?
I said if it was naturalistic in your worldview, it couldn't possibly be wrong.
Yes, it can. Most naturalist philosophers are moral realists who believe in objective morality. You don't understand objective morality because of your presuppositions,
No,
but that doesn't mean that we
clearly
don't
you
have one. It
Got
just
to give
means you don't
Tom the last
understand it.
word on this just because the objection was for him. The optimistic pessimist, thanks for your question, says, would TJump kill baby Hitler? Oh,
No, I would
man,
not
we've
kill baby
had
Hitler.
so
I would
many-
do the moral thing, which is I would just move him to a place where he doesn't get control of an army and mass murders people. And so even if he is Hitler, he can't do any harm, just like what God should have done with the babies, even if they were going to turn out to be bad people. He just moved them to places where they can't cause harm. That's more moral than drowning the babies.
Eliminate free will. Got it.
Next,
It's not free. Well, I mean, it eliminates free will when you drown a baby. That baby doesn't have a choice whether you're drowning it or not. Give me a break, dude.
It's all the
Next,
components
let's
up to
see.
it.
Kevin Gilfout, thanks for your question, says, I can't believe I just spent an hour listening to two people trying and failing to justify defending killing babies and genocide. Y'all are insane.
Well, they can't justify even condemning it. So you're the one that's insane.
Yes, we can. Objective morality is
No,
real.
we can't.
We kind of did give justifications.
we didn't
You
get
just
to
didn't-
argue
you don't have to like our justifications.
No, you just
But
couldn't
we
even
sure did
answer
give
the
them-
question. Why is it
No,
wrong?
Remember,
can.
remember
I
that
have-
part? Wait a minute. You remember that part where I was like, "Hey, would you like me to give you justification?" And you said, "Hey, no, I'd rather ask you a question," and you didn't let me. That
Well,
part would have been
yeah,
great
that-
for you to hear that justification if you. And then I explained it also with CJ, and I believe also Tom actually explained his position on objective morals too. You just either didn't listen or something happened where you were like this. So I can't.
No, you're just very inconsistent and incoherent. So and you just
Before
can't see that.
before I read this next question, I want to mention,
Try harder.
I want to give street cred to the speakers. All four of you, I don't think we've ever had a like to dislike ratio this good on any video ever. I'm not exaggerating. That's totally serious. We have 108 likes and only one dislike,
Wow.
which is probably Tom. So this is just awesome. I'm just kidding. Tom didn't dislike it. But yeah, so thanks. You guys, I have to give you credit.
It was me.
There's been a ton of positive feedback for this debate. So
Cool.
next, Richard Ashton says, babies love it. Have you not seen the Nirvana cover? Oh, okay, what a dark joke. Next, Asmodeus. Let's see. Thanks for your question. Says, seems like this debate should really be about whether this belief is simple zealotry.
Well, to be fair, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Skylar, TJump, you ever want to get rid of some of the ridiculous, heady things and just talk with a fundamentalist? Right here. I'm about as fundamentalist as they come. And if that makes me a zealot, which I guess is almost interchangeable at this point, I just fully grant that.
Next up, oh wait, wow. So the likes and dislikes just shot up. Each of them did. But you guys are still doing really well. 131 likes. These people love you. They can't get enough of you guys. So let's see, we got the optimist.
Raptor Jesus. It's not us. It's Raptor Jesus working through Tom and I.
The
And if it
optimist
wasn't for his holy claws, I mean, we wouldn't
pessimist,
have this.
thank you for your question, said, God is allowed to kill babies does not equal humans are allowed to kill babies.
Thank you.
No, it just means that God is morally contradictory because God can't lie because it goes against his nature to lie. That's what makes lying immoral, right? That's why God couldn't rape because it goes against God's nature to commit that type of action. But when we get to executing babies, all of a sudden there's context where it's okay. So it's within God's nature to not only execute babies, but to torture them. Because what happened in the flood is torture to children as they have to watch as the flood waters rise. their parents die, their brother and sisters drown. So it's within God's nature to torture babies and execute them. So yeah, that's fine.
That's a pretty calm flood.
My position is that morality is inherent to all conscious beings. So no conscious being can harm another conscious being, regardless of whether it's God or a human or a baby or anything. So morality applies equally to all conscious beings, no matter what, in my worldview.
Next.
What cataclysmic flood happens like that, Skylar? Like slow waters rising, like to specifically like edge it out over time? Like that's what you assume it was? Like,
well,
really?
I believe in the scripture it actually talks about how the waters start to rise and people are starting to beg to come on the ship.
Okay, but so you're talking about...
So they had enough time to actually beg to get on the ark. So
the whole world.
Time, well, I don't know if I was saying every child in unison around the world were holding hands and
it's fine.
terror, but I think that you just kind of contradicted yourself because you don't seem to know the scripture.
Well, no, I'm saying...
Have you read it? When's the last time you read it?
Cataclysmic flood, and you want to make it like God was trying to stretch it out, and that's just what you're trying to make
I don't know about... I just said that he drowns babies and he tortured the children by making them go through that.
It's a lot of assumption.
Next, I've got to give the last word to the
I don't
skeptics.
think so.
I think. Okay, Sunflower, thanks for your question. Says Skylar / TJump, is it okay to force your 3-year-old to go to the dentist? And if so, do you agree it's only okay for adults to do this, but not other 3-year-olds to force 3-year-olds to go to the dentist?
It's moral for humans to do the least immoral thing. So, for example, we have to force people to go to the dentist because we don't have a more moral option. If we could just cure any kind of mouth problems, then it would be immoral to force people to go to the dentist. It would be pointless. God doesn't have that excuse. He's all powerful. So he could just cure your what is it called? The thing in your teeth when you get it, whatever. He could just cure it. He doesn't need to force you to go to the dentist. So if parents, you had the option between the two, the moral option would be just cure the thing in the tooth. Don't force them to go to the dentist. So it's only moral for us because we don't have that option.
Next up, thanks for your question from Alex Gross. Said, first debater to take off their shirt. I will order you a pizza right now. My card is ready. Security code 759.
I mean, I've already taken off a sweatshirt, so does that count?
It's really not necessary, CJ. Okay,
I don't think I can compete.
Don't trust the
Smokey,
pizza.
Smokey did it. Smokey did it.
What if I just said I did it? Would that count?
The optimist pessimist says God created life and gave us everything. He can do whatever he wants, including killing babies.
That's immoral. Like, just because you created life doesn't mean that life should have sovereignty over itself. The fact that you created it doesn't give you any right to harm it or do whatever you want to it. That's still immoral.
Next up, we have a question from D-Mac. Says, Smokey, you said that you go by the text. Can you show the text where it gives the age of accountability?
No, and we don't know what it is. We just know that there's certainly in a level of faith in God's fair judgment, that there is an age of accountability. In the Jewish cultural context, it was around the age of 13 when they came into adulthood, could actually start, taking on positions in the household. So, from a Jewish context, it would be 13. But what is it actually in the eyes of God? We have no idea.
Next.
Well, and if I could just briefly add, I do think it depends. Because, just as an example, I mean, some people, this is a physical thing, but some people hit puberty at 12, some people hit puberty at 14, right? It kind of depends on the individual person. I'd say it's more maturity, but the same applies.
Next. Thank you, Spart344, for your question. Says, CJ, it's demonstrable that killing babies is wrong. We've never come across a society that has condoned wanton murder and survived to tell the tale.
We live in one currently. 900,000 babies a year. I'm sorry, that's just a fact.
Thanks for your question from Rodney Fallberg. Says, in WW2, we had to bomb both Germany and imperialist Japan because they were, man, you know how often World War II or the Nazis have come up in this, is said both Nazi Germany and imperialist Japan were bombed because they were evil empires. Children were casualties. It was the parents of the children seeking global domination who were responsible.
Yeah. Here's the issue with this, right? Is these aren't equal analogies, right? We're limited as human beings, right? Now, here's where it would have got unethical. Let's say that we had a button, and if we pressed that button, every adult Nazi would just drop dead, right? All the children would still be alive, the kids, the babies. We wouldn't have to go in and bomb and set everything on fire. But then we, instead of pushing the button, we chose to go in violently and kill everybody with swords and guns and blow them up and kill everybody in the city. That's where it would become unethical, right? The point is with God has like what happened to his debate is Smokey tried to create a false dichotomy as if it had to be the flood or really, really bad people, things would happen. As if like there's no middle ground, as if God isn't a complex being who can create universes and human existence, but for some reason he can't figure out a way to have babies die peacefully without drowning them. Yeah, it's so problematic.
Next.
Yeah, it doesn't say that. That's an empty claim.
Next up, thanks for your question. This one coming from, this is a super sticker of support. Thank you, Bruce Wayne. And also, Sneak Attack Diarrhea, my favorite username, says, next debate, Flat Earthers versus Flood Believers. Are you going to take that, Smokey? Or CJ, I don't know what your view is.
I'll debate that. I'll debate another Christian on any. I'll debate anyone on any topic.
Unfortunately, as you all know, Nathan Thompson is no longer with us. We hope he's doing well. He's not dead. Hold on, sorry.
Oh. I was like, what?
He's all right. He's okay. But yes, we wanted to arrange one with Kent Hovind and Nathan Thompson. It would have been, the internet might have imploded. That's what, it was crazy, but
that would have been amazing.
Asmodeus. Oh, wait, I have a question. Do you guys know, is it true? Someone said this in the live chat. I'm curious if you know, because you guys have got YouTube experience. Do you think dislikes, have you ever, nobody knows.
Doesn't make a difference.
Dislikes can affect, in some cases, like if they get to a high enough dislike ratio on your channel overall, it can affect how much you're promoted to other channels. Like if someone dislikes a video, then they won't be shown your videos as much anymore.
Also, if you have a high number of both likes and dislikes, YouTube may kind of advertise your video around.
I've only been doing this for 4 months, so I don't really know.
So maybe the ratio makes a difference? That's fascinating. Because I had heard a dislike's just as good as a like. I don't know if it's true. But as Modius, thank you for your question, says, claiming that humans can't create anything is a direct implication that all things are a consequence of God. You don't want to go down that road, CJ.
I absolutely do, because it is the explicit testimony of Scripture. You're right. People seem to have this idea of like Zoroastrian dualism as far as Christianity is concerned. That is just not the case at all, right? God is in complete and total control. The only person who limits God is God. So I just disagree.
God created evil?
Must keep moving. Zakus, thank you for your question, said, Smokey, God limited the ark to only Noah and his direct family in Genesis 6:18. He didn't give the babies or even children the chance to get on the ark. Therefore, he killed potentially righteous people, soy boy.
No. Then why was, thanks, James, appreciate it. Then why was Noah even preaching righteousness at all? Why is that even mentioned in the text if he wasn't trying to preach an opportunity of salvation? And why did God give a set amount of time of 120 years before he was going to send the flood? And why did he make that pronouncement? And why did these people ignore it and allow them to die and their children to die because they wouldn't listen? It's because they wanted to live in their evil ways and continue murder, torture, and rape. And these gentlemen want those babies to live up and grow up in that and suffer through it. So
next,
there you go.
Jason Schneider, thank you for your question, says, if Skylar and TJump's arguments were on the table and you didn't know who was behind the arguments, how would you respond?
Same way that I did. I'm not going to lie. This is my first experience with Skylar. I have debated TJump and also watched numerous of his other debates in the past, but it wouldn't make much of a difference. I will say that it may make a slight difference in the sense that I do have a pretty healthy respect for Tom.
Next. Well, what about Skylar?
Well, it's not. Let me hang on. Let me say it's not that I don't have a respect for Skylar. It's that I have watched quite a few of Tom's videos, and I very much, as far as the flat Earth is concerned, I mean, I think you're probably the best counter flat Earth guy in the world. So just take that if you will.
Thank you.
Wow, quite the Gentle on James. I always wonder if that username is about me, but says TJump has a mean quote. Sit in a chair, unquote, game.
So true. So true.
Jason Snyder, let's see, we got that one. Red Knight 821, thanks for your question, said, I'm curious about TJump's moral view. How can this worldview mean anything versus another worldview if there's no ultimate moral law?
My view is that there is an ultimate moral law, just like the vast majority of philosophers. In ethics, you don't need a god for an objective morality. That's a weird assumption many theists have that is completely unfounded based on any evidence. You can check out my moral views on the videos on it on my channel if you're interested.
Next up, John Robertson, thanks for your question, says, for Smokey and Cox, how does God defend his behavior? Is God good because he is God, or is God God because he is good? So some kind of an alternative Euthyphro.
Go ahead, CJ.
I would say so. Correct me if I'm wrong. He said, "Is God good because he's God?" Or
it's good. Is the goodness part of his nature, or is it something he creates?
I would argue the goodness is certainly part of his nature. But as human beings, perspective, we can only understand it as divine command theory. The way I usually put this out to people is like, for example, hypothetically speaking, if Islam is true, then jihad is moral and there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it. Whether or not you disagree is irrelevant. Now, I don't believe that Islam is true, but if Islam was true, then he created the morality, he commanded the morality, and therefore that is accurate, right? So it's both and, not either or.
Next. Thank you for your question. This one comes in from Stupid Horror Energy, says, is CJ aware that fiction are just thoughts with no sentience or self-awareness? If Alderaan actually existed, George Lucas would be arrested.
It entirely misses the point of the comparison. Look, unfortunately, human beings are not capable of creating little worlds populated with living things. So the closest that we're ever going to get is the creation of video games or alternate realities or fictions. That's as close as we can get. So that's the point of the comparison, and by the way, let me point out something very quickly. You claimed that, but I would put the same argument towards you that I would towards anybody, which is that you have no evidence to back that up. And if you did have evidence to back that up, you would actually think such a thing. I can prove it because people all the time are going out and say, hey, there was a rape in this fiction and I don't approve of that. Okay, well, it wasn't a real rape, right? It changes this time.
We have many questions. Robert Luscombe, I hope I didn't get you too short. Did you have anything else?
No, my only point was just to say that, we know that people put their morality onto fiction all the time. So you don't actually believe that, even if you think you believe that, right? You could have just said genocide is wrong and therefore Lucas shouldn't endorse it. You don't, because you understand that he's allowed to do whatever he wants.
Gotcha. Next up, thanks for your question from Robert Luscombe, who says, CJ, please name a non-violent way that your God could have fixed the world instead of killing everyone.
I guess can is a little bit of a word that needs context. So let me explain. He can do whatever he wants. And TJump, Skylar Fiction both pointed out, well, he could do this, he could do that. And within the confines of his power, those things are possible, absolutely. What I would say, though, is that God has set up a certain set of rules in this universe. And being a consistent and honest person, he does not violate those rules. So as an example, we could just decide to, for example, boom, there you go. And now nobody has the opinions that they previously had. He could totally do that if he wanted to. That would violate concepts of free will, and not in the way that kidnapping someone or murdering someone would, but in the sense that you don't actually have free will anymore. You are literally not capable of free will at that point. Likewise, he could, let's say, be working miracles constantly, right, every single day. But he set up a world in which he's naturalistic and so on and so forth.
Gotcha. Okay.
Asmodeus,
we must keep moving. Asmodeus, thank you for your question. Said, haha, no, Smokey, you're totally right. The flood happened instantaneously. Let's look at the physics on that. Are you serious? Laughing my butt off.
I don't know floods that are usually not, especially when they're described as cataclysmic. I don't know what type of peaceful or gentle flood you think that is. I mean,
got it. And Nicholas Whitmire,
40 days and 40
good
nights.
to see you. We must keep moving.
Yeah, that's how long the floodwaters.
We must keep moving. Says there's no begging in the text.
Boat has to lift up.
That's pop culture.
Begging?
I don't get it.
I don't either.
I don't know.
What does it say?
Anyone
Begging in the text? Oh,
you-
I think he's referring to where Skylar said that there were people on the mountain begging. to
Oh
go in the ark.
yeah. No, I might have misspoke. They may not have been actually begging.
Next, Red
But
Knight.
the water
8.
did.
Red
Just a
Knight
pile of water.
8. Oh, okay. Sorry. If you want a chance to respond, Skylar, I just started.
No, I just say that that I may have misspoke there. But what I will say is that it says it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, and nowhere in that scripture is it doing what Smokey's trying to articulate, which is it just all came down really quickly and drowned everybody. I mean, this is just backwards. If God just wants to kill people, he could just have everybody drop dead. There's no need to drown innocent children. I can't even understand how anybody like wraps their mind around this and thinks this is some kind of good justification. All you could do is say God's good because he's good, and this is the way he wanted to do it, and this is the best way he could have done it because God likes it, and God loves drowning babies. That's all I can say.
Well, okay. Yeah, it's a question. It's fine.
Next up, Red Knight. Thank you for your question. Says TJump's morals are not above any other person. Other people's morals may not line up with yours, Tom, and they believe it is moral to hurt people.
Yeah, I believe in objective morality. So there is a fact of the matter. Like there are people who believe the world is flat and they're just wrong. So the fact if someone disagrees with my morality, if my morality is true, well, then they're just wrong.
Next, Alex Gross, thanks for your question, said, Tom, if there was a God, would he have a six-pack?
No, he would have a James pack.
That's very funny, Tom, but we all know you have the best body. Okay, next, D-Mac. He is okay. Never mind. So, says Smokey, by the way, you know what that made me think of? I know this is going to be controversial. Some people are going to be, they're going to rage when they hear about this. We're in talks possibly about a debate with Milo Yiannopoulos next month. So it may be crazy, folks. However, we are going there. And so that's the plan, at least. D-Mac, thanks for your question. Said, Smokey, you told Skylar to stay within the biblical narrative to critique it, but you brought up the age of accountability. That's not biblical, though.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It's also traditional. It's also contextual into the New Testament. Yeah, no, God punishes us based upon what we know. That's even in Romans 2. Yeah, it's all over the place. No, that's nonsensical.
I love when people just say, yes, it is. And then like they think that's like a justification for it instead of like articulating and be like, hey, look at this scripture right here.
I just did.
This will actually, no, you just said.
I just said Romans 2. You just aren't paying attention.
No. Romans 2 does not. Romans 2 does not actually justify.
Wow, you won't even let me answer, bro. Great, thanks.
It's okay, bro.
Next up, is Milo a furry?
You're an honest debater, dude.
Okay, next
I am, dude.
We have
totally awesome, bro.
Very special guest we have here. Tom's chair actually asked a question in the chat during the debate. Tom's chair is able to both seat Tom and ask a question, which was, aren't we glad the flood didn't happen and this God is not real? Oh, yes. Snap. Smokey and CJ Cox.
There's records all over the world of a catastrophic flood like this, even in the more ancient cultures like the Chinese that have a culture that stretches back 4,500 years, and they have stories that are very, very in line with the flood narrative. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, and even though they argue for a local flood earlier today, I just want to point that out. They argue for local flood now. They're talking about worldwide evidence for this flood.
Well, hang on.
That's the contradiction.
From the point of the narrative, dude. What did they? Were they in space?
Short. I mean, what's the word? Really quick.
Space,
next, CJ, it sounds like you had something to say to that jab from their super chat as well.
Well, yeah, I would just say a couple things. So the first thing that I would say is, just for the record, I argue for a global flood. Me and Smokey disagree with that, and it doesn't necessarily impact our argument. So I just want to make that clear. I also would make clear that I actually, if I was not a theist, would still be, at least the human race as it existed at one point in time had what it would consider to be a global flood, meaning all of the humans who they knew of. Because the evidence for that is overwhelming, as a matter of fact. I mean, virtually every culture, in fact, not only virtually every culture in the world, as far as that was alive in this time, but literally every culture that was around in the Middle East at that time has this exact same legend, as well as the Chinese, the Maya, the Inca, and so on and so forth. So I don't think the question of God's existence necessarily impacts whether or not there was a big flood.
Next, thanks for your question. Sunflower says, Tom, jump! You missed the point of the question. Why is it okay for adults or parents to force their 3-year-olds to go to the dentist, but not... Oh, I think they meant... Why is it okay that they can force their own 3-year-olds to go to the dentist, but not other ones? Like, in other words, like they can't enforce other parents' children to go to the dentist, only their own children.
We have legal rights that each parent is responsible for their own child, or because I think the original question was like, is it okay for other 3-year-olds? Yeah, I think that's right. So yeah, it's not right for them to force either their kids or other kids. It's only justified because they're their kids.
Next up, thank you for your question. Zakus says, Smokey, people are born every day. Every day, there's a chance that a righteous person can be born. God took that chance away by killing everyone who was being born that day.
Oh, that's a faulty understanding of the text and the narrative, what was going on. God only brought judgment when there was nothing righteous left there, and that's comparative to the story of Abraham, the fact that he didn't bring judgment on Sodom and Gomorrah until he had taken Lot out, which was the last decent person in the entire city, and then he judged it. If you follow the character narrative of the text, no. If they would have grown up, they would have been cursed and they would have been judged. If they were judged as babies, they were welcomed into the kingdom of God, and they didn't have to go through that. So there's nothing but positive wins from our worldview. That's why they can't accept it.
Next
That's
up.
not true. First Samuel, it was not about that. It was about revenge. I'm sorry. That's just biblically incorrect.
No, we can have a debate on that a different time, bro.
Many questions. Okay. Bishop Martin, thank you for your question. Said, Tom, can you tell Sunflower they're uggy? Sunflower, I'm sorry.
What?
Uggy,
Like
is that like a
sunflowers?
new hip thing? Is that the slang nowadays? CJ, you're probably the youngest of us.
Wait, I got it. Sunflower did not drown baby. Sunflower is a perfectly good human being.
Gotcha. And Moyette Morgan, thanks for your question, said, why God lied, or why did God lie that all outside the ark would die? I think they're maybe saying that, like...
Smokey said it's not a global flood, so then God must be wrong if he said that all the life in the world
I
must
see,
have died.
okay.
Yeah.
I'd have to go look at the exact text.
Next.
The text says all mankind, so it's referencing.
Yeah,
all
and again, I
humans.
think they're just kind of trying to shoehorn something into their quote of it. But I'd have to
so
go
not
look at
actually
it.
dealing with what I'm saying.
I'd have to go look at it,
Talking
dude.
about-
It's question time. What do you want?
That's fine. I'm just saying you should. I mean, you figure this is the topic of the debate. You would have looked at it before the topic.
Well, not
before
that,
the show. That
I don't have that pulled up
God
right in front of me.
You didn't take the time to look at it and see.
Okay,
if
yeah,
God
dude,
had
let's
said
spend
to
time
kill
on this,
everybody.
Skylar. Real great, bro.
Yeah, it's
We
the
must.
topic of the debate.
We must keep
Yeah, let's
moving.
spend some time on the topic of the debate. So great.
No,
Next.
criticizing me for not having it right in front of me because that's good time.
No,
Alex
having basic
Gross, we
information,
must
like
keep
you-
moving.
You're so petty,
Alex
dude.
Gross says,
You're
It's
so
called,
petty.
it's
That's
called reading
it.
the chapter.
I'm
before
going
we
to
have the
enjoy
debate.
this. You're all muted. Okay, so thank you. Alex Gross for your question said, and now you're unmuted. Shouldn't have said that. Said, I need this $2 back. I didn't mean to send it. Thank you, Alex. Mike
Too late.
Ortiz, thanks for your question, said, the entire world was evil, right? How did Noah's family go through life without getting assaulted or murdered if the entire world was evil?
Yeah, I would personally believe that there was probably some sort of divine protection over there in some regard. Yeah, it's a good question. It's actually
We can
is a good
protect
question.
Noah, but we can't protect the babies. Like we
No.
can have divine protection that protects
Protection
Noah, but we can't
was-
protect the damn babies
protection
from
was-
drowning.
Well,
My
the
God.
protection was offering them to be saved by going on the ark. That's why he was preaching righteousness.
Yes,
to
let's
offer
do that with a lot of the babies too.
And
We
they
can
didn't do
too.
that.
Bring the babies.
So
Bring
they
the
were going to
babies.
continue to
Gotta
be
give the last
evil
word
and in their
to
ways.
We can
Smokey.
feed all these
and then-
animals, but we can't feed
See,
more
bro,
babies.
You are so
Just-
triggered.
I'm not
Next up,
triggered. It's
Mark
hilarious.
So
Reed.
incapable of defending
Next
your
up.
position.
No,
You
actually, I am.
guys, you
Actually,
have so
you're
much
the one
energy.
deflecting.
Hilarious.
Deflecting.
Mark-
It's called
So
deflecting.
petty. So
God can
petty.
feed all to every kind of animal. We
Look
can
at
feed
this.
every kind of
Okay, hold
animal,
on.
but we can't feed a
I'm so sorry. You were on mute. I'm so sorry. Okay, Mark Reed, thank you for your question. Said, couldn't God have gotten rid of the Nephilim some other way? Why didn't he, quote, spirit, unquote, them away instead of drowning the humans?
Spirit them away to where? See, this is the problem. When you guys pitch these questions and then we follow reductio ad absurdum to what you give us, just like we did with TJump. And it's nonsensical and ridiculous and doesn't ultimately solve the problem. The only thing you're left with is some sort of environment where you deny free will. And that's what you people end up arguing for. And it's not sensical to the Christian God claim.
No.
So he doesn't respect you enough to answer the question, is what that was.
That's
no
you
respect
guys
to
just want
actually
to
answer the
deny
question.
free will.
That was someone from the audience, not us. They asked you a question, you didn't answer the question.
And you let us.
I don't know why you can't answer. Why can't you just answer the question? Why you
just did? Why do you have to tell me how to answer the question, Homo Santa Claus? What's wrong with this?
Homo Santa Claus? Oh, you so silly, boy. What you,
Smokey? We're not gonna do that.
Wow, you afraid of gay people?
What's wrong?
Why are you so afraid of gay
answer questions?
Skylar,
Homo Santa Claus. Ooh.
Smokey, seriously, don't
Hobo
say that
Santa
again.
Claus. How about
Smokey,
that?
Ho ho ho.
Smokey.
Ho ho ho.
Okay, great. You're all on mute. So, Smokey, don't say that again. Seriously, or you're not coming back. They can't hear you. So, it's like, okay. Next, Mark Reed said, couldn't have God gotten rid of the Nephilim some other way? Oh, wait, we got that. Robert Luscombe says, CJ, the fact that God had unlimited nonviolent means to restart the world, but instead chose the most violent means, proves the immorality of the topic.
So I'd say a couple things for sure. So the first thing I would say is that, again, I don't even think that it's possible for a God to do something immoral if he's the one who dictates what morality is in the first place. Secondly, and I think much more importantly to the point here, we have this idea, well, God could have done this and God could have done that and so on and so forth, right? Well, let's just take one of the examples, right? Skylar brought up earlier, if we had a button and all of the adult Nazis would die, it's like, okay, even in that example, which is not a global flood example in which all humanity perishes, even in that example, so what have we created now? A whole generation of millions and millions and millions of orphans who, of course, go on to commit more crimes than people who do have two parents as a matter of sociological fact, right? And so on and so forth. So that's obviously a terrible idea, right? Likewise, if we just move them somewhere else, okay, we move these 3-year-olds to Scandinavia while we kill their parents and there are no people in Scandinavia. That is brilliant, right? And by the way, I don't say that insultingly in the sense that I'm insulting you, Skylar. I just want to make myself clear. I say that in the sense that it's like, if we actually go through these, the only way that God can actually avoid doing what he did is by some virtue of divine miracle. Now, it's not that he can't do that, but what it is that he has set up, like I said, a certain world where there are rules that he's decided to play by, right?
Yes, he does the things that he wants to do, and the things that he wants to do includes drowning children. That's all you're saying to me, is that he does things the way that he wants them done. And this is
just one question where I know that it's a challenge because almost all the questions are directed towards Smokey and CJ, but if they keep escalating into discussion, we do have more that keep coming. So
I really just want to be able to answer the questions uninterrupted, and Skylar just will not give us the respect for that. So I'm getting frustrated.
Ho ho ho! Try waiting your turn.
Okay, well, Robert Luscombe. I can't remember if I asked this. I'm like sleep deprived. Says I think we did ask this. Yeah, we did. Asmodeus, thanks for your question. Says my name is James, and I'm gonna say the N-word. Nice. I'm confused. I don't think
he was trying to bait you into saying it. I think.
Gotcha. Okay.
He was gonna bait you into say the N-word on your stream.
Oh, because I like read every super chat.
Right. Right.
I sometimes I add stuff, but I've never added that. And thank you for your question. Red Knight 821 says, last moral point, I promise. Your morality, TJump, is not objectively right to others. The world is round is a fact. Your morality is your opinion.
Yeah, so moral realism is the position that moral facts exist. It's like one of the parts that are in the definition of moral realism. So they think that morality is as true as the world is round is true. That's the consensus of the experts in philosophy. Please Google the term.
Next, thank you for your statement from DMAC, who says, Smokey, yum, ama. I don't know what that means. Did I just say something inappropriate?
I don't
know. Next, Alex Gross says, guys, please, in all caps, I am serious about the pizza. I transferred money out of the savings for my baby cousin that he needed for school. Please take it. They really
What
want
is
to
this
see you
about?
naked, Skylar. Okay,
What is-
next. They really want to see Santa naked. You really, I mean, you could pull off the Santa. Okay, next up, Zakus, thank
Next
you.
week. Sorry.
I hope you get that job, bro.
Next up, Zakus says,
I hope so.
Smokey, so they weren't born with free will then?
That's a nonsensical question. They would have free will, but it's just they wouldn't be accountable for their decisions. That's how that works.
Next up, Sunflower, thanks for your question, said, we let adults force kids to go to the dentist, but we don't let kids force kids to go to the dentist. God is to adults as kids is to humans.
Oh, that was the question from before. It's like, why can't kids force other kids to go to the dentist? Well, I would say like the reason the parents can force them to go to the dentist is because they're aware of the consequences. And so they can say this consequence is less bad than this consequence. I mean, the reason kids can't is they don't have the intellectual capability, but adults do. So God can't force adults to do anything because we have that free will thing that he gave us.
Next up, Asmodeus says, Skylar, you just sent my sides into orbit with that ho 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 bit. James, please make that part of a soundboard. That would be awesome to just randomly play Skylar sing ho 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 like that.
Listen, I've been called a lot of names in life, but gay Santa, man, you know. But
Homo Santa. It was actually going to be. It was actually going to be Hobo Santa. That was what it was supposed to be, and it came out Homo Santa. So yeah.
Yeah, it came out really bigoted. Yeah. Here's the thing, and listen, this is how you can tell you lose debates when you have to resort to all the name calling really early, like and towards
Oh,
the
it's
end.
just fun, bro. It's just fun.
Oh, I know you think it's fun to like call people names. I'm sure that's part of your Christian morality too.
Reductio ad absurdum. It's
yeah,
what
it's-
happens when I notice.
No, I don't believe. No, I don't believe that. I think you
That's
just
what
kind of
happens when I
admit-
notice people of substandard character, like people that can't justify their positions and worldviews yet condemn
Oh,
others.
that you mean that part where I tried to justify it? You said no, don't justify it.
No,
Let
the
me
part
ask
where
the
you
question
condemn
again.
other people's worldviews while not being able to support your own. That's hilarious.
Oh, yeah, that's what
Yeah,
what happened.
that's what
Oh,
happened.
Was that what happened?
How did we get?
I don't know what you will
Watch
how
it
did
again
we
later.
get to this from
Yeah.
Skylar having his ho 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 on the soundboard. Like, okay, let's
Oh, we
go.
just love the debate, James. That's why we're here, bro.
Next up, Bert Kreischer's fake laugh. Thanks for your super chat. Says, is Tom Jump good looking? I think so, but I'm not sure. What do we rate him out of 10? Well, chat, let
Santa-
us know. So appreciate
You know,
that.
Santa over here rates him a 10. I'd wrap him
believe
up
it.
in a nice red and green bow, open him up on Christmas.
That's
Nice Christmas little present for
Very
ourselves.
nice. So appreciate. Yes, this has been a fun one. Yes.
Ho,
you
ho,
know,
ho,
it's,
Tom.
Scale of 1 to 10, fired into the
Oh,
old
sell
chat,
it.
folks. But
Sell it,
yes,
bro.
we all know it's like Tom's an 11. I mean, come on. But want to say that is it for our questions. We do have to wrap up as we are longer than we usually go. But thank you guys so much, Skylar, Tom, CJ, and Smokey. We totally appreciate you guys coming here and hanging out with us. As I mentioned, folks, if you're listening and you're like, boy, would I want some more of that. You can hear more of that. Their links are in the description waiting for you. So want to say thanks so much though, guys. This has been a wild one. And like I said, people have given so much positive feedback.
Thanks
no,
for having us. That was a lot of fun. I appreciate for
Thank you.
Homo Santa
Yeah.
coming on.
Fun
taking the
times.
Appreciate it. You know,
Oh,
always good to be here to see who's been naughty and nice. And apparently, two gentlemen have been very naughty.
Yeah, sell it, bro.
You
Absolutely.
know, it's kind of naughty when you think you can drown babies and it's moral. You know, Santa's not down with that.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Next, what is it?
You get some rocks on Christmas, just like those little kids.
Yeah, you're not coming in my house, bro, especially with that accent.
Maybe you
let's
should
see.
let me. Maybe I'll bring you a
Next
nice
up.
little present you can unwrap.
No, okay.
Gross.
Stop.
It's a nice big present.
Oh, so
Yeah, and that
sorry.
would be rape.
Uh,
I'm glad you condone
What,
that.
would you rape me as Santa?
No,
Oh,
that's
I
what
thought
that's
just
what
wanna
you would be
unwrap it.
apparently doing. You're bringing me some big present. Yeah, that's lovely, dude. Great, thanks. You're
You don't
really
like-
selling
you
on
don't
it.
like big.
Is
you
that
don't
what
like
you
big
do? You
presents?
take an insult and you just absorb it like the blob? Is that
CJ,
what
how you
happens?
doing?
Next.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Okay, you guys.
At
this
least
is
you got to
really-
make it
Wait.
funny. Smoke. If you're gonna make jokes, make them funny. Like don't
Can
just.
I-
Well, currently you thought it was funny enough to absorb it and run with it for the last 20 minutes. So good job, dude.
Okay,
Thanks.
yes.
Oh.
Everyone is really
Compliment.
naughty and
Ho,
on
ho, ho.
Skylar's Skylar's naughty list. But I do have one last question. So sorry, James W. Folks, first of all, I want to mention, if you ever see Spart344 in the chat, that is our dearest friend who, I'm trying to remember the last topic. But yes, he's a debater, as well as James W. is a debater. I can't remember James W. debated. That I remember. That was alien abductions. Which, by the way, you guys, I am stoked. We might actually host Hugh Ross on the topic of whether or not alien abductions are the real deal. So that should be super, as Skylar says, it should be awesome. We'll just say that. So, okay, where is James W.? I'm looking for your question in the chat, bro. I'm so sorry. It's just, once the Q&A gets rolling, it's hard for me to keep an eye on the chat. Is this some sort of tasteless joke, James? Well, I will mention this. Couple of things. One, kind of curious if while we've got everybody here, if you can give like one or two sentences to say why if you want to, but I'm curious about this because it's coming up and it's on everybody's mind, in the back of their mind, because we're still a number of months away. 4 months away or so? What's your probability assessment that either Trump or Biden wins?
Biden's going to win by a small margin.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I think Trump's going to win. Trump 2020.
That makes perfect sense now with the homophobic comment.
Oh, sure it does. Yeah, bro. Yeah, because I'm not homophobic.
That makes perfect sense now.
I'm not homophobic. You just give me vibes.
You just called someone Santa homo, but not
well, as I explained, it came out wrong. It was supposed to be homo.
Well, you waited to explain it until later on.
You're deciding to run with it for 20 minutes. Well, no, I explained it right away.
Come on, guys. What's CJ's answer?
I personally believe Trump will probably win in 2020. It's pretty rare that the incumbent loses. And also, I do think that Biden did himself a major disservice by kind of attaching himself to Sanders when he was supposed to be the moderate candidate. But I have a feeling Trump will be the first president to lose the popular vote twice.
Gotcha. And James W., thanks for your question. Appreciate it. Wow. Says, if Christianity is true, isn't having kids evil? You'd run the risk they can't believe in Jesus on faith and thus be tortured forever. Wouldn't it be better to never exist?
No, not even close. In fact, that really sounds a lot like antinatalism for one. For two, The Bible is quite clear: go forth and multiply. It's a literal command.
Well, and plus, the idea of depriving the choice in that particular context would be wrong, because it's outside. It's the judgment of us versus the judgment of God. It's a temporal mind with agency, with temporal agency, versus a non-temporal mind with non-temporal agency. So it's a false dichotomy. It's a false comparison.
Next, we must continue on. Want to say thanks so much to our guests. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for making this a blast. It was a party. I enjoy reading your feedback, as well as just thanks for hanging out with us, just kind of keeping it real, even if you're just sitting back. So with that, keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable, folks. We hope you have a great rest of your Monday, and we'll see you tomorrow as Mr. Batman, for the first time, joins us on a debate on atheism versus Christianity. So hopefully we'll see you then, and have a great night, folks.